Without going into too much detail, because there's going to be a number of people speaking today, I'd just like to give a quick synopsis of what makes this Lapchick Award, the Joe Lapchick Character Award, so special. Is that we are not just honoring what you have done, but more importantly, how you have done it. Presenting for Vern Lundquist is the great Bill Raftery.
Of course, Louis Conaseca called a couple of weeks ago and he said, "Do you believe in free speech?" I said, "I do." He said, "Good, you're going to give one at the Lapchick Awards." It's nice to see the priests in the room. We used to play St. John's on a frequent basis, unfortunately. And one night I was coming into the gym and two elderly priests were there. And they said, "Hello, Bill." And I said, "Fathers, I hope you're praying for both teams." And the one priest said, "Yes, Bill, we're praying for one to win and one to lose." When you hear the name Lundquist, you think of style, grace, charm, depth, character. Well, enough about Nancy for a minute. But in your heart, I don't think any of us will ever meet a finer human being than Vern Lundquist. Please welcome him as your honoree.
And young people have taken to it. It's been a great thing for me because I'm all over the lot in the second half of the movie with Adam Sandler. And there is a line called, "Who the hell is Happy Gilmore?" So I'm doing a CBS arranged intersectional game, North Carolina and Arizona. So we've got Roy Williams and Lute Olson. And Billy Packer and I were sitting in the stands watching practice. Roy prefers that announcers sit away from the court so he can instruct in a proper way. Again, Nancy and I have had a great time, and we were able to renew our friendship with Bill, and Chris and Bobby. Congratulations to you guys. Thank you so very much.
I'm Bishop John Barris. I'm the Bishop of the Diocese of Rockville Center. I serve 1.6 million Catholics on Long Island, and I like to think that I serve all of Long Island, our beautiful island. It's a great honor to be with you today and to support the noble goals of the Joe Lapchick Character Award Foundation. I too offer my congratulations to Vern Lundquist, Coach Chris Daly, and Coach Bobby Crimmins for the way they model for us the character and virtue lessons of Coach Lapchick and his successor, Coach Conaseca.
Just want to take a minute to introduce Dr. Richard Lapchick, who is one of three very successful children that the Lapchicks had.
I thank Gus for the book he wrote, the foundation for creating this award, Madison Square Garden Television for doing the film Lapchick and Clifton, and St. John's University for several years ago erecting a statue of my dad on campus. I'm told that it was the first time they had a statue on campus that was not a saint.
That transitions to one of the greatest coaches in the history of college basketball. Amazing, amazing record. 1,062 victories. I want to stand next to you for a picture so I can do one of those. Between us, we got 1,100 victories. Can we do that? You don't mind, do you? 11 national championships. Right now, to present for Chris Daly, let's welcome the great coach, Gino Oriana.
person next to my office was named Bruce Arena, who you may have heard the name. He was a coach of the U.S. World Cup team, U.S. Olympic team, LA Galaxy. There's going to be a lot of things, a lot of great things said about Chris Daly. Either I can say them or I can get off and let her say them, which she's better at saying those great things about herself than I am. But I can state unequivocally that this is true. If Chris Daly wasn't my assistant, none of what's happened at Connecticut would even be remotely possible. And no one deserves this award any more than Chris does. Congratulations.
Started out as a roast. I was getting a little worried. When you get the phone call and you're going to be honored with this kind of award, it's just really humbling because you don't expect to be honored for something that, I love what I do and I've been blessed to be in great situation with great people, but it does give you an opportunity to look back. It's been a great afternoon so far. I'm also looking forward to listen to Coach Cremins. The last time we saw him, he was in the College of Charleston. So thank you again. I'm proud and honored to be part of the Lapchick family and enjoy the rest. Oh, and I understand cocktail hour is the next big thing. Yeah. So I'll see you at cocktail hour. Thank you.
Let's welcome as presenter for Bobby Cremins, John Roach.
Thank you, Bobby, for the privilege of introducing you today, and congratulations to you and to Mr. Lundquist and Coach Daly for this honor. Where ethics and character often take a back seat to ambition and selfishness, the Joe Lapchick Award is especially meaningful, and the three of you are indeed very worthy recipients, and congratulations. In a post-game interview where Bobby's team failed to execute the game plan, Bobby explained that as a coach, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him eat. Integrity and character and great kindness. And ladies and gentlemen, Coach Bobby Cremins.
When I was 14 years of age, my family moved from the South Bronx to the Upper Bronx, area called Highbridge. And my best friend became Tommy Owens, who was John's teammate at LaSalle Academy under Coach Danny Buckley. Watching those two guys transform from good players to great players was really something to see. Nobody, and I've been around a lot of players, nobody worked harder on his game than John Roach. The thing I'm most proud of is achieving my parents' dream. They came to America so their children could live the American dream. And thanks to their sacrifice and the game of basketball, I've been able to do just that. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon and welcome to the New York Athletic Club for a special afternoon here. The awards are now, I'm not sure of which year. To be quite honest with you, Tim Capstraw is usually the MC. He had to get his knee replaced, so I got a phone call and it kind of fits in with my athletic career. I'm coming off the bench again. So I'm very accustomed to this. It's an incredible place. I am a member here. For those of you in from out of town, enjoy it. It's a very, very special place. We have so many people to introduce through the course of the night, and if I miss anyone, I apologize in advance. Former members and honorees of the program, as well as so many people that have had great careers in coaching and administration and things of that nature.
And around its red land, the flowers bursting in air, gave proof through the night that a flag was still there.
There were so many roads to follow, and to get here was difficult. But after saying nothing, I really want to talk about a person who is obviously involved with this foundation, a gentleman that I played for, Joe Lapchick. He's really the honoree today.
The Joe Lapchick Leadership Award is an award we created as a foundation to say thank you. Say thank you to those who helped us establish the foundation, grow it, maintain it, and bring us to the point where we can honor the 4 people today for character that we're doing. So it doesn't just happen, it happens because people make it happen. And the person we're honoring today is a person who on day 1, year 1, stepped up and said, I'll help you. In all those years, I've come to learn that he exhibited every characteristic of what this award stands for, of what it means and what we're trying to do. And over that time, he accepted every call we ever made. He supported every effort we ever asked. And he exceeded expectations on anything he ever did for us. Without that, it wouldn't be. And that's the Rich Zizek that through this foundation for the last 14 years I've got to know. And it's an honor today to give him the Joel Lapchick Leadership Award. Rich.
As my young son had expressed an interest in playing basketball. As luck would have it, my hometown parish of St. Rose in Massapequa was offering to send dads interested in learning how to coach to a clinic run by a very successful and interesting man. That's when I met Coach Gus Alfieri, coach and author. I'm honored to accept this award on behalf of this foundation. Thank you.
But when I think of Coach Bird, the word that I always think of is consistency. He upheld all of those values so consistently throughout his career and in his personal life. He never took shortcuts. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my friend, my mentor, and forever my coach, Rick Bird.
I think I can, since I'm first, I can speak for all the recipients and simply say that this is way more about honoring Coach Joe Lapchick than it is to each of us. And I am just amazed. I can't think of
Thank you for taking your seats. Thank you. All right, now Adam Unger is going to sing the national anthem. Everybody, can stand up, please. We're going to sing the national anthem. Adam Unger is going to sing it. Thank you for standing up. Here's Adam Unger.
Okay. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow. How do you top that? Right. Please be seated now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Pete Gillen, and I'm the MC this afternoon at the luncheon. And we'd like to get started now. All right. If everybody kindly be quiet just for a second, please, so we get our program started. My name is Pete Gillen. I work for CBS Sports Network as a color basketball analyst, and I'm your MC. I used to sing Irish songs when I was young, 5 or 6 years old. My aunt was a singer at funerals and weddings and bar mitzvah. And after we sang Irish songs, she said, "Peter, my boy, you're tone deaf. Just don't talk no more." So I can appreciate Adam Unger. I want to welcome you to the Joe Lapchick Luncheon. And this is how the luncheon got started many years ago. 4 people. Gus Alfieri, sadly passed on. He was a great player, played for Coach Lapchick. All right, he wrote a book, Lapchick. Gus was great. Jim O'Connell, Associated Press, Hall of Fame writer, did a great job promoting this event. Sadly, he passed away also. Dan Sacco, who was the CEO of Nelson Braden, lives in Connecticut now. He's here today. All right, and Rob Livingston, I don't know if Rob made it. He was coming in from California. I don't know if he made it. But Dan, will you stand up, please? Dan Sacco, please, you stand here. Dan, right there. All right. Without Dan and the other 3 gentlemen, there would be no Joe Lapchick luncheon. Why is it a luncheon? The biggest thing is the Joe Lapchick Character Award luncheon. Joe Lapchick Character Award. It's important, he thought, to have integrity, morality, honesty, leadership, excellence, and he promoted that. Bob Cousy, many years ago, played from Queens, went to Holy Cross, won a national title, 1947. He wrote a letter after his freshman year. He says, "Coach Lapchick, I want to transfer from Holy Cross, even though we won it. I come off the bench, started a little bit. I want to play St. John's." Joe Lapchick says, "No, you're playing for a great coach. Doggy Julian, stay at Holy Cross, and you'll be fine." That's character. If he would have transferred, no, most coaches would take it. I coached a long time, I would have taken him for sure. All right? It's a jungle out there, baby. I mean, get them before they get you, and I was got a lot. I got thrown under the bus many times, but Joe Lapchick had unbelievable character, and that's what he wanted to promote. And they said, hey, we want to promote and preserve the legacy of Joe Lapchick, the character, and Dan Sack and the other three people, they mentioned that they did that. So first thing we have now is we're going to talk about some memories of Coach Lapchick. Jerry Houston is going to come up in a second. Briefly with Jerry, and I got a word limit. They don't want me to talk too much. All right? So every time I talk too much, I lose on my salary. I get paid donuts, so I don't know what happens. But Jerry was a great player. He scored 65 points in a game. 65 points. All right? And his son was a great player too. Played at West Point. He scored 53 points, all-time Army record. He scored 953 for the season. I know, is Kevin Houston here? Is Kevin? I don't know if he made it. Where is it? Kevin, stand up, please. Kevin, stand up. Kevin Houston, great player at West Point. All-time leading scorer at West Point, over 2,500 points. And his dad was a great player, played at LaSalle. He's going to come up and talk some memories about Coach Lapchick. Jerry Houston from LaSalle Academy and St. John. Come on, Jerry.
Whoa, we catch up here for a second. It's been kind of a rush. A little traffic on the George Washington Bridge. Set us all back a little on the schedule. But just happy to be here. Once again, this is one of my favorite activities each year, is to be at the Joe Lapchick Luncheon and see so many wonderful people, old friends, St. John's people. And it's just a great environment to be in. Oh boy, okay. As Coach mentioned, my name is Jerry Houston. I'd first off like to congratulate the Lapchick Award winners who are being recognized today for their outstanding accomplishments. Gino Ariema, Phil Martelli, Frank McLaughlin, Gene Steratore. I know all of these men absolutely have many of the same qualities that Coach Lapchick had and was already spoken about, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about as we go through the course of the day. Okay. I'd also like to extend a big thanks to Jim McTighe. Is Jim here, by the way? Where is he? Sitting all the way in the back. Jim McTighe and his committee who helped organize this wonderful affair. Now, I was mentioned already, I was a co-captain on the St. John's team that Coach Lapchick coached during his last year. We won the Holiday Festival that year and the NIT Championship team, which is the last game of Coach Lapchick's legendary career. Coach would always tell us, and he would not only tell us, but he would actually live this in front of you, to always carry yourself with pride and confidence and treat others with dignity and respect. He was always, in so many different ways, subtle ways, trying to build character. I think he was almost always successful, too. I would like to share a few reflections with you about Coach from that 1964-65 season by relating a couple of different stories. So our season started out early that year with a game against St. Francis of Brooklyn. We had a little better team than they did, and as the game went on, we enjoyed a double-digit lead. Our leading scorer, Kenny McIntyre, had the ball, and they were really playing him close on defense. And the guy playing him got up very, very close to him, almost underneath Kenny, and trying to put a lot of defensive pressure on him. What Kenny does, he takes the ball, puts it over the defender's head, pulls it back quickly, and the kid who was defending him just turns around naturally looking for where the ball might be. And Kenny just does a little drop step, and he buries a 20-footer. And the place exploded out at the Alumni Hall at the time. I actually thought it was a pretty good move. He completely fooled the defensive guy. However, Coach Lapchick saw it quite differently. He immediately called a timeout. It was one of the few times I saw a coach get upset with the team or with the player. He looked at Kenny and he said, "You know, you just showed that young man up. You embarrassed him and made him look foolish in front of his family and friends." We don't do that at St. John's. He says, now, Ken, you can take a seat at the end of the bench and think about what you just did. The timeout was over. The lesson was learned. Coach Lapchick was always a stickler about never showing anybody up. If you had to speak to a ref during the game, you addressed him as Mr. Referee. You never disrespected the refs, competitors, or other coaches. Now, Coach was always a classy guy, and the measure of his worth was his strength of character and his ability to inspire and bring out the best in others, particularly his players. So getting back to that year, 64-65, the Michigan game was actually tabbed I'm jumping ahead for a second. Madison Square Garden had put out a commemorative issue of the 75th year of hosting college basketball. And the Michigan game was tabbed as the 8th most memorable moment, and the Villanova game we played in the finals of the NIT was the 7th most memorable moment. How fitting for Coach Lapchick, his last year as a coach, to be recognized like that. First, the Michigan game. In the finals of the Holiday Festival, we played against Michigan and Cassie Russell, a consensus All-American. They were the undefeated #1 ranked team in the country. And that game, we were down by 16 points with 8 minutes to go. During the timeout, Coach said to assistant coach Lou Carnesecca, "Shall we try the bush?" And Coach Carnesecca turned to him and agreed, said, "Yeah, we should try the bush." We then went to Coach Carnesecca's half-court press, which he called the bush because it was short for ambush. It worked. It was the first time we used that defense in a game. And as I said, we were down 16 points with 8 minutes to go. From that point on, we held Michigan to just 1 field goal in the last 8 minutes. Kenny McIntyre led our team in scoring as he usually did. And I was lucky enough to score our last 3 points as we beat Michigan 75-74. In the last moment of that game, as I was going to the foul line, Coach called me aside, put his hand on my shoulder. He had a twinkle in his eye, and he said to me, "Keep your head up, Jerry. I know you can do this." And you know what? He was right. I was able to do it, which turned out to be the main difference, the 1-point difference in the game. And it turned out to be one of the greatest wins in St. John's history at that time. And our final game of the year was against the #1 seed Villanova, a team we had lost earlier to that same year by 13 points. I remember back to that snowy afternoon on March 20th, 1965, in Madison Square Garden. Our starting 5 was Ken and Bobby McIntyre, Sonny Dove, Bobby Dewar, myself, and our first man off the bench was Ken Worrell. This was to be Coach's last game, and what better place than the mecca of college basketball to end his career. The Garden was alive with electricity and excitement and a standing-room-only crowd. I remember as I walked down the long tunnel and under the Garden, going to the dressing room, Coach was standing on the sideline, called me over. He said, "Jerry, I'd like to speak to you for a minute." He said, "I know this will be the last game of your career, too." And with that, he gave me a small gift wrap package and said to me, "You can open it." I opened it and it contained a pair of gold cufflinks with an NBA insignia on them. And there was also a note in that box. I have that note in my pocket right now. I'd like to share it with you, if you don't mind. It takes just a few seconds. And the note that was in the box says, "Jerry, a small token of my appreciation for your excellent contribution to the team's success. I was proud to be with you." And it's signed, Coachy. Well, I was kind of stunned. I just didn't know what to say or do. And I'm thinking this guy, this may be one of the biggest games of his life. And again, he takes a position where he's thinking of somebody else and doing something extraordinarily nice for somebody else. And it happened to be me at that moment. I said, "What kind of guy is this?" I just looked at him. I said, "Coach, thank you." He looked back at me and smiled and just nodded. He said, "You better get inside and get dressed. We have a game to play." And I'd just like to finish up on this note. I've been carrying this in my pocket since March 20th, 1965. I carry it in my wallet. It's a little roughed up right now. And whenever I have a down moment, which is fairly often, or things are not going so well, I reach in and take that out and read it, and immediately I can transport it back to the garden, and just such wonderful, wonderful times, and this wonderful, wonderful man that I was lucky enough to have as a coach. So we got onto the floor. By halftime, St. John's was hitting on all cylinders. We had a 36-28 lead. Our team was on a crusade for our coach, but the Wildcats came back strong in the second half. And with 7 seconds left in the game, we were clinging to a 2-point lead, 53-51, and I was fouled. During the final timeout, Coach told the team, after Jerry makes these 2 free throws, fall back on defense and absolutely no fouls. And I'm thinking, what confidence this guy has. I'm shaking like a leaf, and he's just, you're going to make these. So when we were ready to return to the floor, I got to tell you, my heart was pounding right through my chest. I felt like I could hardly breathe. I could feel the noise of the crowd all over my body. And Coach called me back to the side, and he placed that big hand of his on my shoulder, and yes, he had that twinkle in his eye again. And he said to me, "You can do this, Jerry. You can do this." And again, luckily, he was right. Luckily for me, anyway. He was right. I made the 2 free throws and secured a 55-51 win. For our coach, Burrell, a teammate of mine, we were at the Garden watching the St. John's game. At the halftime of the game, we met with Coach Lapchick in the lobby. It was packed, very noisy, and as we were talking with Coach, all of a sudden, Howard Cosell comes barging into our conversation with total disregard for Ken and me, with a cigar hanging out of his mouth, and he's shouting, "Joe, I got to talk to you. Joe, I got to talk to you now." Cosell was as many of you know, Cosell was a very aggressive and arrogant reporter and much full of himself. And I think used to get in his own way most of the time. Maybe some of you have had that experience where you're talking to somebody in a conversation and a third party comes in and just kind of pushes right ahead of you, like not even seeing you, not respecting you, not caring about you, because he's maybe more important. So maybe some of you have had that experience, and it's not a pleasant experience. At that moment, our coach, Joe Lapchick, he held up his hand and he said, "Excuse me, Howard. I'm talking to 2 of the young men who helped make me a famous coach. I'll be with you shortly." As Cosell stood there with the cigar hanging out of his mouth and just about speechless, Ken and I finished up our conversation with Coach and we parted. I'll always remember how Coach Lapchick treated people with great dignity and respect. Thank you, Coach, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. We'd like to introduce a couple of honorees in the past that are here with us, and thrilled to have them. And we can hold applause, please. There's just a couple, and we'll do all 3 together. This first gentleman coached at the University of Pennsylvania. He won 10 championships, 10 Ivy League titles. Then he went to Temple, won 3 Atlantic 10 titles there. Then he went to LaSalle, helped build the LaSalle program up. He won 625 games. 625 Division I games. I'm glad I didn't have to coach against him. All right, if we can stand up, Fran Dunphy. Fran. Stand up, Fran. Fran, stand up. He's got a... Fran is very modest. There's a different type of Irish. There's the shanty Irish, that's me, and then the lace curtain Irish, the fancy stuff. He doesn't, he's a lace curtain. He doesn't want to take the... Next person, coached 28 years at Fairfield University. She won over 450 games. Coach of the Year 5 times in the conference. All right, went to the NCAA tournament 4 times. Did an unbelievable job. She was a past honoree. Diane Nolan. Would Diane please stand up? Next person here is helped UConn. UConn, as a lot of you know, won 12 national titles. 12! I won 12 games when I coached. 12 national titles. It's unbelievable. Well, she's associate head coach at UConn, former head coach at Rutgers. Did a great job there in Cornell. She's in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, the inaugural Assistant Coaches Hall of Fame. Chris Daly, would you would kindly stand up. Past honoree. Chris. Stand up, Chris. Lenny Elmore was supposed to be here, but he's caught in traffic, so I don't know if we will do that. But next person I'd like to bring up is, he's going to talk about Coach Conasecca. Gentleman, Frank Alasia. Here's Lenny. Lenny came in. Look at his appearance. All right, Lenny. Little hand for Lenny. We planned that. I'll tell you what. We planned that. Full disclosure, we planned it. Lenny Elmore was a first-round draft pick. He was the Washington Bullets at the time, played 10 years in the NBA. All right, first-round pick, was an All-American. It was a great, great career. Got a degree at Harvard Law School. Now he works at Columbia. I can't talk to him more than 7 minutes. He's way out of my league. I was experimental admissions in college, so I can't deal with Lenny. But a great player, former honoree, Joe Lapchick Character Award. Lenny, will you stand up, please? Lenny, one more time. I mean, talk about an entrance. That's a pretty good entrance, you know. He got caught in traffic and he comes in. Can't make that up. Next gentleman here played at St. Agnes High School in Long Island. He's going to talk about Coach Conasecca. Was a great player at St. John's. Played with Coach Frank Moser for 1 year, 3 years with Coach Conasecca. He was a point guard, and his team was 83-30. Won 73% of his games. So if you win 73% of your games, you're a pretty darn good point guard. All right, great player, great person. Frank Alasia, we welcome him, please. Frank. Yeah. Okay.
Can I take this thing out? Before we start, I'd just like to thank Jimmy McTighe. I'd like to thank Pete Gillen, Dan Sacco, and I think we have to remember Gus Alfieri, because if it wasn't for Gus Alfieri writing the book about Joe Lapchick, these days this event would never take place. Coach Conasecca had an admiration for Coach Lapchick, for the way he treated his players, the way he spoke to the press, and for his humility. And when you really think about it, you could count on one hand any time a legend follows a legend. And these are two true legends. I've known Coach Conasecca since I was 10 years old, so I know him in a very different way. My father would take me to St. John's games, and actually the first games I went to were to see Jerry Houston. And my way to St. John's, I saw Jerry Houston, Carmine Calzanetti. I saw all the great point guards before me. So my father, you mentioned Cousy. Okay, my father was all city at Jackson. Cousy was a freshman when my father was a senior. So Cousy actually looked up to my father. And when he came from BC to recruit players in New York, he would stay at our house. Not a bad guy to learn how to play point position from, right? So I would go to in 1964, they had the Olympic trials at St. John's. So I was around St. John's all the time. So my way to St. John's was like kind of a natural progression. Now when I talk about Coach Conasecca, it's hard to, when you lose somebody who's that old and been such a part of your life for so long, it really hits you. In 70 years, I knew Louis for 60 years. He said so many things as a coach, but when I tell Louis stories, which I'm gonna have to use a couple of substitute words, because Louis was very, very colorful. So I remember him saying, if you're happy with yourself and happy with your game, you'll be mediocre your whole life. It wasn't about how good you were, but about how good you want to become. And my father had instilled me in that from the time I was 10, and my coach at St. Agnes, the legendary Frank Morris, who coached Billy Donovan, coached in the same league as Rick Pitino, and I believe those guys took a lot of Frank Morris's stuff. Coach was so funny that he had such a great sense of humor. And He said that I go to Kutcher's to give to learn as a young coach. And he's very Italian, so he used his hands all the time. He says, "Here I am, Frank. I have my clipboard, I got my whistle, and I have on my shorts." Now you got to remember, he's Adolph Rupp, Buck Freeman, Claire B., Nat Holman. All the greats are at Kutcher's. Buck Freeman calls me over. He says, "Louis," he says, "in order to wear shorts, there are 3 criteria. You must be handsome, 6'2", and have nice legs. You fit none of those categories." He said, "Frank, I swear to God, I never even wore shorty pajamas after that." When I would go over to his house in Jamaica Estates later on, so you have to realize, like, I thought you were 90 when you coached me. He'd always get like a laugh out of that. But he had such a great sense of humor. And I would say, "How do you feel, Coach?" He said, "I have the small bag packed, not the big one." And we talk about players and who was his best players. And he would tell me the 2 greatest players probably I had were Chris Mullin and Rick Barry. Rick Barry with the Nets. He said, "How do you coach these guys?" He said, "Frank, if you take the brush away from Picasso, you don't coach these guys. You got to let them do what they want to do. They know the game better than you do." So I see Rick. I got to tell the Rick Barry story. I see him at the outing for St. John's for Lou Carnesecca. So I said, "Rick," I said, I played for Lou. Now Lou loved Rick. Rick called him a lot when he was sick and stuff. He never forgot. "I played for Lou. Figure I'd break the ice a little bit with him." I said, "And I saw you score 39 points at St. John's when I was 11 years old." So it was a special treat for me because it was a weekday. Usually I didn't get to go to the weekday games. I only could go to weekend games. My father said, "This is an exception. We're going to see the best player in the country." Now I'm a basketball nut. I know it's Bill Bradley in my head. I love Bill Bradley. So I tell Rick, I said, my father said, "We're going to see the best player." I said, "We're going to see Bill Bradley." He said, "No, we're going to see Rick Barry." I said, "What do you think of that, Rick?" He goes, "I think your father knew a hell of a lot more about basketball than you." He would talk to my father, and I would call him up. I say, "Look, there's a hurricane bearing down on Florida. My father's down there. I think it was Hurricane Andrew." I said, I got to get him to move out of the building." Now, my father was 6'1", 180 in college when he played at Georgetown. But then he'd gotten big. So I said, "Coach, do me a favor. I can't get this guy to move. He's not going to leave." I said, "This hurricane is bad." And "Don't worry, I'll call him." He calls him. Call? "Okay, great." Call my father. "Did you speak to Coach?" "Yeah, I spoke to Coach." You know, what did he tell you? He told you to go, right? He told me, "There's not a hurricane in the world that can move you. Stay put." Ronnie Rutledge tells a good story about a pre-game meal. And Maitre D' comes over and he says, "Coach, one of your players doesn't want the steak. They want lobster." Louis says, "Point that player out." He points to Walter Berry. Coach said, "Get him lobster." He said, "Now that's great coaching." We're playing Hawaii. Close game. Calls timeout. We need to score. Sunday afternoon game, we don't really play well. We're on the bench. About a minute left, we got to score. He says, "Okay, we're going to run a red for George." This is George Johnson, playing the NBA, great player, 6'8". I said, "Coach, shut up." Okay, he's going on and on and on. I said, "Coach, shut the bleep up. Are you the coach or me?" I said, "Okay, you are." All right. Break the huddle. Go on the floor. He says, "Now what the bleep was so important that you were to tell me?" So not like, in umpire in baseball, you never turn around and argue. I put my arm around him, I look at the scoreboard, and I go, "George fouled out." So what do you want me to do? It was like a Bonnie and Clyde, like we look at each other. He goes, "What do you think I want you? I want you to bleep and score." And we did. In closing, I'd like to say that, you know, Coach Fonseca was such a warm, like, gracious, caring person. Whenever you went to his house, you could never leave without a bottle of Prosecco. I have about 3 cases home, if anybody drinks that. I don't know anybody who drinks Prosecco, but he used to give me a bottle of that every time. And when my mother passed away, before she was even laid out, he calls me 3 times. And he says, Frank, you have to understand one thing. A mother's love is different. Mothers are different. I said, Coach, I know. I think I finally convinced my mother on her deathbed that Chris Mullen was better than me. He loved coaching. He had such a focus. I never saw anybody who loved doing what they were doing like Louis. And when he practiced, it was so organized and so, you know, tunneling. In fact, one time Billy Post told me the lights actually went out in the gym, and Louis kept talking and wanted to know why everybody wasn't moving. He didn't even realize the lights went out. So that level of like focus and concentration was really, really impressive. But he loved his family. He loved Mary, his wife, naturally. And Lou Fonseca was just a true New York legend. What can I say? Thank you.
Great job, Frank. Quick story on Fonseca, to segue a little bit what Frank said. I coached at Xavier University for a while and Providence College, and I had a chance to go to University of Virginia. So at a function after the season, sports banquet, I saw Coach Fonseca, and I don't know if he knew my name, but I think he knew I was a coach. So I said, Coach, just to let you know, I'm leaving now, the Big East, I'm going to the ACC, you know, to coach at University of Virginia. He said to me, wear a helmet. I said, all right, I'll wear a helmet. He was right, I needed a helmet. I got bombed, but it was great. Next person's going to talk about Coach Fonseca, and we're going to have 2 honorees who are going to get their accolades, all right? And then we're going to have main part of lunch, and then we have 2 more. So I wore a helmet. I still have the helmet that I wore at Virginia, which is good. Next person was a very close friend of Coach Fonseca, the lead sports anchor for WNBC, 25 years with News for New York, very close friend of Coach Fonseca. If we can welcome Bruce Beck. Bruce.
Playing at the Garden is like being in Macy's window. It doesn't matter who starts. A lot of people started wars and lost. That foul was like a subway nudge. Michelangelo couldn't have helped my face. All of these are Lou Fonseca quotes. All of them are Louisisms. They still resonate with me today. Yes, the words of the man, the myth, the legend still echo in my mind. And his soul still is deeply embedded in my heart. And that's the important part. Maya Angelou once said, I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Lou Fonseca made you feel good. Lou Fonseca made you feel welcome, made you feel like you were family. Lou used to call me every birthday, every New Year, every Passover, every Hanukkah, and every special family occasion. And no one ever said, Mazel Tov, any better than him. And I'd call Lou before these long trips I did in July of 2024, just before I went to the Olympics. I said, Coach, it's Bruce. How are you feeling? And he says, not bad, as they say on Pitkin Avenue. Then he says to me, how's your wife, your kids, your grandkids? And I say, great, Coach. I now have 6 grandkids in 8 years. And Louis says, without missing a beat at age 99, what are you, Catholic? So I then asked him how his balance was. Because Lou says, I'm a little unstable on my feet right now. And I followed that up with, Lou, how's your mind at 99? And he says, I can tell you every ref who gave me a technical foul, and you know what, Bruce? They can all still go to hell. And then Louis says, but I think a lot of them liked me. Did I ever tell you this story? February 4th, 1967, Temple, coached by Harry Litwack, comes into Alumni Hall as the #1 team in the nation. The ball game is tied with 7 seconds to go. We're in the ambush, half-court trap, and we foul the heck out of them as we play defense at midcourt. But the ball pops up in the air, and we come up with the steal, and Albie Schwartz scores the winning basket. Final score, St. John 65, Temple 63. There was no foul called on the play. And then Lou says, Harry Litwack was chasing Dolly King and Lou Eisenstein down Union Turnpike, and if he was alive today, Litwack would still be chasing those nice but blind refs. That 1966-67 season, Lou's second year at St. John's, he was named Coach of the Year by the Metropolitan Basketball Writers Association. He got that honor in a Manhattan hotel, and afterwards, Joe Lapchick, Jack Kaiser, Marty Satolino, and Jack Glimmer took Lou to Danny's Hideaway for drinks. Louis was feeling on top of the world. Everything was going smoothly. He felt he had made it as a college basketball coach. And they checked their coats and hats. Glimmer asked the hat check girl if she knew who Carnesecca was. When she said she had no idea, Lapchick pulled out a card that read, Peacock today, Feather Duster tomorrow. Lapchick gave that card to Louis, who kept it in his wallet for decades. It was the size of a business card, green, worn out. Louis told me it was a relic, and that Lapchick told him to always keep it in his wallet and embrace humility. Yes, Louis loved Lapchick. He told me that Joe and him would talk for hours after a game. And he said one night after a loss at MSG, they walked out of the Garden with no coats and walked for 15 blocks on 7th Avenue before they both realized it was snowing like crazy. Lou didn't care. Neither did Joe, because they were together. I was honored to host the Lou Carnesecca TV show in the late 1980s and early 1990s. This photo of us working together is a classic. It's one of my favorite photos of all time. I asked Lou to sign it, so I would have his beautiful words about working with me emblazoned on this photo forever. I gave it to Coach to put his endearing touch on it. So what did he write? Dear Bruce, if only you could talk. I still put it up on the wall in my office. Here are my notes from the show on December 29th, 1989, when Jim Valvano was our guest. Jimmy V was in town with NC State for the ECAC Holiday Festival at the Garden. I remember trying to do an investigative interview and might have gone a little too far. On the air, Valvano turned to me and said, "Who are you, Mike Wallace?" Afterwards, Louis called me aside and lectured me about my interview approach. And he left me with these meaningful words, which I take to heart every day. You treat a guest like a guest. The show was entertaining. We didn't just talk about basketball, we discussed life. Louis was hysterical. He cursed a lot without even knowing it, as Frank mentioned. And one time after a great segment, I said, Lou, we have to do it over again. You use the F word. He looks back at me and innocently says, I beg your pardon. But he cursed like no one I've ever met. We tried to do a feature once. All we need is 12 segments of 5 to 8 seconds. And it didn't work, because every third second, Lou said F. He warned me, but the show never got on the air. We had incredible guests over the years: Chris Mullen, Al McGuire, Willis Reed, and Governor Mario Cuomo, who played baseball at St. John's and was signed by the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1952 as an outfielder for a $2,000 bonus, which he used to help purchase an engagement ring for his soon-to-be wife, Matilda. The most entertaining guest we ever had was Jason Williams, who came on the show and talked about everything, including his new house in Bedminster, New Jersey. Jason basically took over the show and told Louis about the spectacular basketball facility he built in his basement. Lou, it's such an amazing gym, and I want you to know it's named for my former coach and mentor. It's called the Lou Carnesecca Memorial Court. And Louis goes, Jason, that's such a wonderful gesture, but I ain't dead yet. In closing, I would like to say what an honor and a privilege it is to be here today, to be a part of the Joe Lapchick Character Award program. Lou called him the Big Indian. He revered him, and I will always revere Lou. Next to my father, Felix, I don't know if I ever loved a man as much as Lou Carnesecca. He was a coaching genius, and his soul was pure and gentle. The fabric of the man was something to behold. When St. John's won the Big East tournament at the Garden this year for the first time since 2000, I was on the court doing interviews, and I had one mission: to get a piece of that net that they were cutting down. I convinced the great Kenny Klein, who was helping the St. John's Sports Information Department, if he could save me one strand. He did. When I got it, I mailed it out Federal Express to one person who deserved to be a part of the celebration, Enos Carnesecca, Lou's daughter. After all, Lou will always be a part of the fabric and the lore of St. John's basketball. She cried when she received it. I cried when I knew she had it. Lou has that kind of impact on many of us, on all of us. Rest in peace, Louis. You will always be loved, and you will always be remembered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Great job. You can see why he's been a sports anchor for 25 years. Great job. Now, we're going to introduce one of our honorees. We have two before, then we're going to have the rest part of lunch, and then the other two afterwards. First person that's going to present to Coach Frank McLaughlin, the award is Gene Doris. Gene Doris is the athletic director at Fairfield University, where I went to school for 23 years. When I went there, I got in experimental admissions. It's kind of sad. Right now, it's one of the top schools in New England. They gave me the rock test. Which hand is the rock in? I passed it, but it took me 3 times. I'm from Brooklyn, so Brooklyn people aren't that sharp, so it took me a while. But this gentleman did a great job at Fairfield, 23 years as the AD, coach at Archbishop Stepinac in the Bronx, did an excellent job there. Now he's teaching. Gene Doris, come on up and present our first honoree, Frank McLaughlin. Gene Doris.
I'm embarrassed Pete can do this without glasses. I can't. Anyway, a few months ago when Frank was given the award, it seemed like a long time away at that point before this was going to happen. And so I didn't think a lot about it until it really hit me last night. I said, anybody having to say something about anyone or anything between Pete Gillen and Frank McLaughlin, that's nearly an impossible task. I said months ago when Frankie from the Bronx, soon to be, and now Frankie from Texas, said, I want you to do this, but I want you to know you're going to be very, brief, with the emphasis on brief. So, for the Joe Lapchick Character Award, I was humbled, proud, and a bit perplexed as to how I do this. He's been my best friend from our college days. What do I say? All Frank's achievements are very well expressed if you read them in the program that you have in front of you. I couldn't do that any more eloquently. So how do I capture the moment? Well, I thought a little bit, and I said, well, let me go to somebody that's pretty good at this kind of thing, who could probably capture all this with a very brief note, and then I'll bring it with me and I'll just read it. So that's what I did. And again, I got to get the print in focus here. Dear Frank, hold on. Dear Frank, Melania and I are pleased to extend our congratulations on your selection as a 2025 Joe Lapchick Character Award honoree. The award is a meaningful recognition of those who embody the virtues of integrity, leadership, and service, qualities that define Joe Lapchick's life and continue to inspire countless citizens today. From your early days as a player in New York to your decades of leadership at Fordham, Notre Dame, and beyond, you have left a lasting impact on the game of basketball and on the generations of athletes you have mentored. Just as meaningful, you are known off the court as a devoted husband, a proud father, grandfather, and a caring friend to all who know you. Please accept our best wishes on this well-deserved honor. May God bless you and your family. Donald Trump, 47th President of the United States. So, from myself, Frank being a friend for 50 years plus, I want to ask him to please come up.
Thank you. I guess the contributions came back to me, so thank you.
Good job, Gino.
Right. Gene, stay over here. This is what happens when you deal with old people. This is a tremendous honor for me to be the token Irish person at the Pennsylvania Sons of Italy luncheon here. I want to congratulate the honorees. I want to thank there's a large number of Fordham people here, and Fordham has played a tremendous part in my life, and I want to thank you all for sharing this. My family is here. I have Charlotte, and this is Brooke Blaney. Now, Brooke Blaney, I'm her grandfather, but I'm not her famous grandfather. She's George Blaney's granddaughter, so. And then we got Molly and Connor, and then we got my Tara and Heather, and my oldest daughter, Susan, is here. And this is being live streamed, so I would like to say hello to all my friends in the nursing homes throughout the country, and to my daughter and her husband, Kevin, Colleen and Kevin in Austin, Texas. I go back a long way with the Lapchicks. And Richie and I have been friends since the late 50s, early 60s. I don't know how well you know Rich, but Richie was the one when I was young and a teenager convinced me to join the Young Conservative Club in New York. And I want to thank you, Richie, for that. I know. I met Coach Lapchick, Jack Donahue, who's the legendary coach at Power, and was a very good family friend of mine. And I had met Coach Lapchick through Coach Donahue. But in April of 1965, Coach Donahue accepted the head coaching job at Holy Cross. And so he took me over to sit down with Coach Lapchick. And we went over to the house in Yonkers, and Coach Dunning was very, very excited. And he had a list of 17 possible candidates. Back then, you only had one head full coach. I don't know how many we got now, but he had one coach. And he went over each of the 17 candidates and explained the advantages. And Coach Lapchick just sat there very patiently, didn't say anything. And after Coach Dunning finished, Coach Lapchick said, I want you to look at that list. He said, if you had, forget the basketball, he said, if you had a serious personal family problem, who on that list would you call first? He said, because that's who you should hire. And that has always stuck with me my whole life. The basketball community has meant a tremendous part in my life, my family's life, and I want to really thank you for enhancing our lives. Susan and I just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary, and everybody knows what a loving, caring husband I am. And I know most of you that are going to have 50th wedding anniversaries, who else could give their wife the Lapchick Award for that anniversary? Thank you very much. Bonner's going to take this to school. Very nice. All right, thank you. Oh, I want the...
All right, Peter. Okay, I'd like to continue with the program. We have so many talented people. I got to apologize beforehand because I'd love to mention everybody in the room, but I can't. And the talented people we're going to introduce, they have so many accolades. We'd be here until next Friday, all the things that they've done. But we have who's who here. We're very fortunate to have at the Joe Lapchick Character Foundation luncheon. We have a young lady that was a trailblazer for women's sports. She helped the Big East get going with Dave Gavitt, Mike Trangisi. She helped them, did an unbelievable job. Was the commissioner of the A-10 for 14 years, did a great job there. Now she worked with the Skyline Conference, a Division III conference, New York area for 12 years. Now she's working at a search firm to help get people jobs as ADs or commissioners of sports. If we can say a welcome to Linda Bruno. Linda. She was here. Well, wherever she went. Okay, another person I'd like to introduce is a gentleman that is the president of the CHSAA Brooklyn and Queens for over 40 years. He's a New York State Basketball Hall of Fame. He's a terrific player at St. Francis College. Did an unbelievable job. And he does an unbelievable job with the Brooklyn All-Timers Hall of Fame. He's a legend. Ray Nash. Would Ray stand up? Right there. His assistant was a great player at St. Francis College. He only shot when he had the ball, which is good. It's pretty tough to not. He used to steal it from his teammates. No, it's not true. But he was a great player at St. Francis. He's in the St. Francis College Hall of Fame. Dennis McDermott. Dennis. Next gentleman is the athletic director, I think he's here, I didn't see him, of St. John's. Took the job a year ago, was at Fordham, did a wonderful job, 4 years at Fordham, raising money. A terrific guy, Ed Cole. Ed, stand up, please. Yes, Ed. Next gentleman was the athletic director at St. Joseph's in Philadelphia for 35 years. 35, it's a lot of years. all right? And he played for the legendary coach, okay, at St. Joe's, Jack Ramsey. Played baseball also, did an unbelievable job. He's one of the guys they have. A10 has an award named after him. Somebody wants to become an AD, you have this gentleman's award, okay? You have a 10-month internship as AD at A10. And that's the respect they have for him. Tremendous person, tremendous AD. Don DeJulia, would Don stand up? Last two, and then we'll continue with the program. Next person is the present AD of the Atlantic 10. Took the job in 2008. Teams got to the Final Four, right? As we know, VCU, George Mason. Later on, Loyola was not a member then, but they're in the league now. He's one of the most respected athletic directors in the country. One of the best in the country, Bernadette McLeod. Will Bernadette stand up? Next person before we continue our program is the president of Fairfield University, was an all Ivy League player in rugby at Yale University, got his doctorate at University of Michigan. The campus at Fairfield is unbelievable. It's about an hour here. If you ever were looking for a college, Fairfield's great. As I said, I couldn't get in there now with $1 million and a shotgun. I couldn't get in there. But it's a great, great school, and he's a big part of the success of a beautiful campus, beautiful school, Dr. Mark Nevick. Dr. Nevick, stand up. Okay, we'll continue with the program now. Next gentleman is who's going to present it. I coach against him. He's at Boston College. He was a great assistant for Jim O'Brien. I was at Providence. He knew our players better than our guys did. He's a tremendous coach, tremendous assistant. He's now the head of officials for the Big Ten, retired a couple of years ago, but did a wonderful job with the officials. He's going to introduce our next honoree, Rick Boyages. Rick.
So this is a trip down memory lane for me. Pete, will you translate my Boston accent if anyone has a problem here? I had the fortune of coaching on the opposing bench for 10 Lapchick Award recipients in the program. One of the best stories was when I was named head coach at William & Mary, I lured the assistant coach, the top assistant coach, away from Mount St. Mary's, who was coached for 47 years by Jim Phelan. He's in your program under 2011 recipient. And as a young coach, I had never met him. Coach Phelan was an unbelievable legend in college basketball. He had the most wins in college basketball history, Division I history, I think until Boeheim and Krzyzewski came along. So I was a little bit nervous, but professionally, the right thing to do was to call Coach Phelan and tell him that I had offered a job to his assistant, and he accepted. And I was a little nervous. I called, he picked up the phone. I said, Coach Phelan, Rick Boyages from William & Mary. He said, "You prick." And I had never met him, so I really wasn't sure what to do. So there was this like awkward pause. And he goes, "I'm just busting your chops." He says, "I figured someone was gonna pilfer Milan from me. He's a great assistant." And so this was Milan Brown, who's currently an assistant at Pitt. And 2 years later, Coach Phelan called me, and he said, "Rick, Coach Phelan from Mount St. Mary's, I'm taking Milan back because I'm going to retire in a year, and he's going to be the heir apparent, so screw you. He's coming back to Mount St. Mary's." So of all the coaches there, including Pete, that I got a chance to coach against, it's just great to be back around New York City and see so many familiar faces. So, as Pete said, I left coaching, I ended up getting into administration, and I worked for a great commissioner of the Big Ten, Gene Delaney, the 31-year commissioner at the Big Ten. And unfortunately for a coach, he asked me to take over officiating. And I said, that's gonna be interesting. And I had a lot of good friends in the league that I coached against, but I'd never been hung up on by Tom Izzo until I got into officiating. And Tom's still obviously a good friend, but for me, it's just a great treat to come to an event like this and honor a referee. I've got the distinct pleasure of presenting Gene Steratore, who, in my opinion, is the single greatest sports referee official in the history of American sport. Okay? I mean, that's a big statement, right? But you have to understand, and it's great because this is a basketball room. Gene worked in the NFL for 15 years. He worked 14 playoff games, a couple conference championships, Super Bowl 52. And in these games, he's the white hat. The guy with the white hat on the football field is the boss. He's the crew chief. But Gene also worked 22 years of college basketball. And a lot of people don't even realize. He worked 12 different conferences. He worked the A-10, the Big East, the ACC, and he was with me for over a decade in the Big Ten. He worked a number of Big East championships at the Garden. He worked championship finals at the Big Ten. He worked 12 NCAA tournaments, basketball tournaments, and 2 Sweet 16s. So keep in mind, like when he was with us in the Big Ten for 10 years, every single game was nationally televised. And then you add that, obviously all those NFL games were nationally televised. So I tried to surmise, who scrutinized Gene? Well, on the basketball court, it was conference commissioners, ADs, coaches, players, fans, alumni, boosters, season ticket holders, students, television broadcasters, color commentators, bookmakers, and gamblers. So I'm not sure about the family, Gene. I don't know if they were evaluating you or they were in your corner. So not only did he make a major contribution to the NFL, but he simultaneously made a major contribution to me, the Big Ten, and college basketball. It's amazing because crazy things happen, and Gino and Phil will attest to this. In the non-conference season, before New Year's, it was possible in the Big Ten that we would have 12 games on a Saturday. Well, that's 36 refs I need. I needed all hands on deck. And Gene's working football, but we're talking constantly because I'm giving him games on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I said, Gene, there's a Saturday in December, and I need help. I said, if you have a game Sunday in Detroit, Indianapolis, Chicago, Minneapolis, New Jersey, or DC, I got a game the day before. And so he goes, okay, I'll keep it in mind. So he calls me the next day and he goes, boss. He always calls me boss. He goes, boss, they're sending me to Seattle. So there's a pause and I said, that's interesting. How'd you like to do Illinois versus Gonzaga at the Seattle Kingdom? I got that one. I didn't think I'd mention it. And so Gene probably when he comes will mention what happened, but for some reason, if you Google this game, Illinois Gonzaga in the Seattle Kingdom in 2010, and you pull up the box score, Gene's name is not on the box score. So Gene, I'll leave it up to you to explain to the fans what happened when you did show up there. But the other story I wanted to relay was, I think it was 2018. Gene was the crew chief on the infamous 2018, they called it the Minneapolis Miracle. I don't know if you guys remember, it was an unbelievable game, scored in the last seconds. So this is on Sunday, January 14th. 24 hours later, he struts into the Bryce Jordan Center at Penn State for Penn State versus the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And I still remember the look on young Richard Pitino's face, who was coach of Minnesota at the time, because I'm sure him and his whole team watched the Minnesota Miracle the night before. And here comes Gene, and Gene is fist bumping the table, the scorer, the timekeeper, the 24-second clock, or the shot clock operator, and the timer. And everybody cannot believe that in less than 24 hours, he made it to State College, Pennsylvania to ref hoops. So that was just kind of the guy Gene was, and he was an amazing mentor, to the younger refs, because we were trying to develop, we had a separate business, an LLC, that Jim Delaney set up for the Big Ten to basically run officiating. At one point, we had 65 Division I institutions in 22 different states, and it was all developing young officials to selfishly feed up to the Big Ten. Jim was an amazing commissioner. He was a visionary. He was the first commissioner to start a television network, the Big Ten Network, which today is valued at, over $1 billion. A Jersey kid that knows this scene well. His father was a high school coach. Gene, when I asked Jim about you, and Jim also played at North Carolina for Dean Smith. He played with Charlie Scott, first black player in the ACC. And he was roommates with Eddie Fogler, who was a coach at Vanderbilt, South Carolina. He said, Gene, he said, you possess the humility to stay out of situations when you weren't needed, but you had the courage to get involved when the game required it. Then I heard from your buddy, Bo Ryan, Hall of Fame coach from Wisconsin, total piece of work. He said, some officials know how to control the game and the coaches, and no one did it better than Gene. Period, exclamation point. Then I talked to just all basketball stakeholders. So many people. There are conference commissioners in the room, a lot of ex-coaches. It's a lot of just great basketball people, people like that. And it was amazing, the response I get. When I talked to your colleagues that you ran with in the Big Ten for a decade, they said you were great at having a calming influence in the craziest and most stressful moments, and you made everybody feel comfortable, and you allowed the guys to be their best in those situations. The overwhelming consensus from coaches, and it's a tough run, Pete, right? There was a previous reference to referees earlier. It wasn't great. Pete thought he needed a helmet at Virginia. Referees, white hats in the NFL, on a worldwide stage, forget national television, it's global. Gene, they said that you were just an amazing partner. And then the overwhelming consensus of coaches was that you were an adept play caller, just an amazing game manager, and a master communicator. So, congratulations.
Well, I probably have about 30 seconds. I will have to tell you that if you live long enough, miracles happen. Here I am in a room in New York City with a good portion of my family and at least 2 or 3 dozen coaches. They applauded when they said my name, right? So if you live long enough, it can happen. I will tell you though, receiving the phone call about a year ago from Jim Nance, who still to this day, when he phones me and starts with that beautiful voice, I start looking at the TV. I think he's on TV and not in my phone. And then getting a phone call from a wonderful Irish gentleman, Jim McTighe, who said, we're going to bring you to New York. And first name out was naturally Coach McLaughlin, another wonderful Irishman. And then I hear Ariema, and then I hear Martelli, and the first thing I asked McTighe was, well, what's for lunch? I'd like to know what we're going to eat. And then I found out that they were going to have a little gathering the night before. And then you get nervous. Because now they're inviting an Italian guy to New York and an award that they've never given to an official, surrounded by coaches, and would like you to come to dinner the night before. Pause. Then I get a call from Rick 24 hours before the dinner before meeting at night in New York. Hey, sorry I can't get in time, but go ahead and go to the dinner by yourself. I'll see you the next day. Longer pause. So for those of you that didn't see me last night, my wonderful young mother of 80 plus years is with me. I figured it was safe today to come to the room. So thank you all for that. I'd be remiss, and you've got to recognize these other three gentlemen. Frank, 60 plus years. I think the first time I laid eyes on you, I was about 13 years old, and Digger Phelps came out at West Virginia Coliseum with that boutonniere on, and you guys were dressed to the nines. I was about 12 or 13. The hook was in my mouth. I wanted to do that. I also have to thank you, because being in my 60s now and knowing that someone like you started your life's work before I was born makes me feel young. So I appreciate that. And Coach Auriemma, from one fellow Italian into a first generation Italian, what you have accomplished in life, with a side note to what you've done in basketball, but more importantly in life, you make our people so proud, and you're just an amazing man. And what you've shared with the country, because they've tapped into that, is something that we will all cherish well beyond our years. So I thank you for all of that. And Coach Martelli, my first ever Atlantic 10 game, I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, getting ready to work a Division II championship, and Larry Limbo got hurt. And you were at St. Bonaventure, and the late Mickey Crowley, who's the reason why I'm standing in front of you in the basketball space, phoned me to see if I could drive to St. Bonaventure, and I got on the court with you that night. So you really were the first head coach at that level for me to experience, and you scared the hell out of me. And I was thinking, you know, looking at the program, imagine being a 22-year-old young kid who wants to referee basketball and going to the high school with you as the head coach and Coach Auriemma as your assistant. Could you imagine going over there before the game and shaking those two hands? Are you kidding me? Shit, I'd have left. I would have said, no, I can't do this. And then fast and forward, Phil, honestly, I was assigned the Temple St. Joe game at the Palestra. Put my two kids in the car, Andrew and Jean, and Natalie was already at school, so unfortunately she couldn't make the trip, but Natalie would have been the first one in the car if she would have been home. I said, boys, look, I know you guys have made 100 trips along the Pennsylvania Turnpike, but you're getting in the car for this one. It's one I need you to see. They'd never been to the Palestra. And I was at the Palestra when my late father grabbed a microphone because they threw toilet paper on the field after Princeton would score the first thing, and my dad was crazy enough to just grab the mic and take over. He was the first of the stereotypes to cross the bridge and go into TV or to entertainment. But I told my boys, I said, you got to get in the car and you're driving with me across the PA Pike. You got to see this arena and this atmosphere of Big Five Philly basketball, and with Nilsson and West, and I think Coach Chaney had just maybe won a 600th, or we were right around that point. It was a magical, magical time to be in the A-10. And I remember the two boys pissed all the way up on the turnpike, and then sitting in the old Palestra and watching that game. And when they drove home that day, a 13 and 11-year-old kid, they thanked me the whole way home because of what you did that year. And not just that year, you also challenged me as an official, and I'll never forget it. It was a year or two after I got in the NFL. We were standing next to each other at some point on the game with the ball in play, and you said to me rather quickly, you said, look, I know you can call plays, but now you got to learn how to manage the game. Now you got to be a referee, you said to me. In passing, that stuck with me my whole life, and you were that individual. So I thank you for that. You meant a lot to me, and still do, and all of you do. To my beautiful family, I've got 6 brothers and sisters, 3 beautiful kids, 2 grandkids, 4 stepkids. If I would have had to pay for all of them to come here today, it'd cost me $50,000. So I handpicked a couple. You know, they say you've got favorites, you don't have favorites. They're full of shit. You got favorites. So the one table here, those are the favorites, right? A couple stragglers that came along. I forget what your name is, but I'm happy you're here with my kid. You hear me? Take care of my daughter. You understand? Or you and I are going to take a walk in a well in the mountains, all right? Christopher, my one stepson of Lisa, my beautiful wife's 4, is here. And Andrew, my oldest son, Eugene, could not make it today. And my beautiful daughter, Natalie. I was in the middle of 7 kids. I was 3. 5-year break, mom and dad finally took a little bit of time off and that good Catholic rhythm thing, and then number 4 came, and that's my beautiful sister Liz, who went through life with me back to back as the two middle kids in the chaos. My late dad's not here. He was one of the first officials when the Big East was formed. He was in the Eastern 8 when it was the Eastern 8, not the Atlantic 10. I got to sit in the back seat of a car listening to Mickey Crowley and my dad drive up the highway when the Big East was formed. They didn't talk about the teams, the players, but they talked about the coaches. They talked about, I got Rolly and Louie tonight. I got Big John and this young guy, Patino, I think, right? But I sat back there and I absorbed it. And I think the greatest game manager in the history of basketball officiating was Mickey Crowley. There was no person, I thought, that could manage people in the game in an uncomfortable situation, not wanting to be seen, but knowing there would be moments where you would have to be seen. And how do you manage these people, these coaches, that no one says no to except their significant other and their lives? How do you walk onto a basketball court, which is their office, where they spend every day, they know every dead spot on the court. It's where they live. And you have to go in there on their evaluation day. And you have to make decisions and know you're going to be imperfect through that. And you have to manage that. Play calling is just play calling. Officiating is handling uncomfortable, unpredictable situations, accepting your imperfection, being humble enough to admit when you are wrong, but being strong enough to know you have to move through it, and doing it without wanting to be recognized. In our lives today, where everyone wants to be seen for every thumb up tweet because they like the apples at the market today. Amazing people do things in big stages, and the goal is to not be recognized. But there is one commonality, and that was the game and what the game represented. And to the Lapchick family, and to your amazing coach, father, uncle, son, I believe he understood that in the ultimate, in the most amazing way. That there was a bridge between this beautiful sport we all love and endure in. And the bridge had to bridge into something that had meaning in our lives. Because then when that happens, we actually now have something of true value other than entertainment. Sports is not just entertainment. It teaches us all of the virtues of life, and the most important, which is empathy. Not sympathy, but empathy. And in order to work 80 Division I basketball games, a full NFL schedule, and do the right thing for the game, it couldn't be about the check. It couldn't be about the stage. But it had to be about empathetically understanding the level of preparation, sacrifice, respect for your opponent, who had to be so great to make you so great. But as an official, you had to study that, appreciate that, and humbly respect the fact that every one of those individuals participating had put their life's work into that moment. So you had to study not just the game, the matchups. If it was the Princeton offense, if someone holds the cutter and Raph thought it was a nickel dimer, it was a foul tonight. Because if Thompson can't run the Princeton offense and they hold his cutter, he can't run his offense. Looks like small change on TV, we chuckle. Biggest call of the game. Coach Thompson needed to know that that call was going to be made tonight, so he prepared for 36, 72 hours for that game, and if I can't run that offense, we can't play tonight. Coach Boeheim knew that if he could pull his cutter for a minute and take a half a step away, the rhythm of the game was destroyed. So a pull on a cutter when Raph thought it was a bullshit call was the biggest call of the night. And if Georgetown went up to set a screen and they were a half a step early and the guard started too quick, it was an illegal screen and we're taking the possession tonight too. But if you didn't know that, and if you didn't study it, then you shouldn't be there. Because it wasn't about how many checks I could get or how many games I could work. It was about holding the integrity of the game that night for those people, for what they did, what they prepared, and how that bridged into your life. And knowing that you weren't going to be perfect. There was one individual that taught me that. She is still alive. She did raise 7 kids.
And she did it quietly. And she never wanted to be seen. And she ran everything. She still has the white hat. She is that person. And we're lucky that she's still with us. So as we all go through this journey of life, where all these positions and titles that we carry today, that we don't own but we rent, I am so fortunate that I got to rent the space that I got blessed with them and with all of you unbelievable people, because we'll be gone in this line of history and someone will fill the rented space that we got. But for this 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of rent, we all were really lucky to share that rental space at the same time together. And I am as well with all of you. So thank you all so much for this award and what it means in life for us as people. And remember that our opponents should be the fiercest, best opponents in the world. But at the end of the day, we share the game and we share life. And if your opponents aren't the best, they didn't push you to be the best. Thank you all very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Gene. What we'd like to do now is we continue the program, introduce a couple of people real quick. We're going to have Father Rock come up and give us a blessing in a second. But a couple of people I'd like to mention real briefly. This next gentleman is the athletic director at New Jersey Institute of Technology. He brought NJIT from Division II to Division I. He got the job in 2000, 2002. They brought NJIT to Division I. They're in the American East Conference now with Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, UMBC, and UMass Lowell, some of those schools. But he did a wonderful job. He got the Athletic Director of the Year. Athletic Director of the Year from the National Association of College Athletic Directors. If he would be recognized, stand up, please. Lenny Kaplan. Lenny, where's Lenny? Lenny's in the back. Next person is the athletic director at Poly Prep High School in Bay Ridge in Brooklyn. He worked on Wall Street trading stocks for 25 years, made a ton of money. He buried it, but he's got a ton of money. But he's done an unbelievable job at Poly Prep. He coached lacrosse there, had an undefeated team at Poly Prep. He's been there now, the AD, all right, for a year or two. He's been at Poly Prep about 7 or 8 years. Lou Candell. Will Lou stand up? Where's Lou? Okay. Next person was a former AD at St. John's, did a great job for about 10 years. Heck of a job there, won a lot of games. Chris Monash. Chris. Stand up, Chris. Okay. Next person now is a brand new Fordham athletic director. And he's going to do great things with the Rams. And thrilled to have him here, Charles Guthrie. Charles, stand up, please. Charles Guthrie's here. Okay, if now Father Rock would come on up and give us a blessing, please. I know we're halfway through the meal. Father, good to see you.
Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we come before you today with hearts full of gratitude as we remember and celebrate the life of Joe Lapchick. Today we celebrate our honorees, Gino Oriama, Gene Steratore, Frank McLaughlin, and Phil Martelli, who are receiving the Joe Lapchick Character Award that is well-deserved because they have Joe's character. We thank God for the life of Joe well lived, a mark marked by the core values of St. John's University, truth, service, opportunity, love, and excellence. These are not mere words for Joe, but principles he lived every day in his family, in the NBA, and especially on the courts of St. John's. Lord, we praise you for Joe's courage and vision, for his unwavering belief in equality, for his role in breaking down racial barriers in the world of sports. Joe, you showed us justice, unity, and change, and for this we are thankful. God, we ask you to help each one of us to carry on his torch. May we live out the values that he cherished. May we stand tall in the face of adversity and fight for justice as he did, and walk humbly in God's eyes. So we ask you, God, to bless this gathering, bless the food we share, the people prepared it, our fellowship, and open our hearts especially to the poor and homeless in New York City. They are God's people. And we pray this prayer in God's name. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Great job, Father. Great job. Next thing now, before we get a little break, we introduce a couple other people real quickly. This next gentleman helped the luncheon come to the New York AC. Without him, we would not be here. He was a great player at Iona College. He was in their Hall of Fame, played professional baseball for the Cardinals. He won over 400 games as coaching Mount Vernon High School in baseball. And a terrific guy, Joe Mazzella. Will Joe stand up? Where's Joe? Okay. Next person is a great player. He did something unique. He played professional baseball for a year, played professional basketball in the ABA for the New York Nets. All right. He also teaches math. How many people did you know could play professional baseball, St. Louis Cardinals, professional basketball, ABA, terrific player. He was a great player at Manhattan College in their Hall of Fame. Teaches math. All right. A great player, great person. Coach at McClancy did a great job. He carved me up like a porterhouse steak. We played them. All right. George Brunch. George, stand up. He's very modest. Next person was a great player at Holy Cross High School in Queens. Played at St. John's, is the all-time leading scorer at St. John's. Averaged 25 points a game. 25 points a game in college at St. John's. Okay, played for Coach Frank Molzoff. They went up and down, chuck and duck, heave and leave. He said, when it felt like leather, I'm going to shoot it. He only shot when he had it, but he was a terrific player, a great guy. Billy Schaefer, where's Billy? Billy, stand up. Last person I'll introduce before we take a little break, continue eating. Next person came from Canada. He's a TV analyst for the Toronto Raptors. He's from Brooklyn, New York, went to Fordham University, and he helped make basketball even more enjoyable and known in Canada. He's a TV analyst now for the Toronto Raptors, coached at Fordham. He was with Tom Penders for 1 year, all right, and Nick McCartrick for 4 years, but unbelievable job on TV. They love him up there in Canada. He's from Brooklyn, Jack Armstrong. Jack, stand up, Jack, stand up. Irish guys. Irish people got to stand up. Fran Duffy went in the river. Jack Armstrong. I mean, what the? I'm a shanty Irish. I'd stand up, guys. Jack Armstrong did a great job. So we're going to take a little break now to continue eating lunch, and we'll continue the program with our other honorees real soon, real quick. have your attention. We like to start the program. We want to try to keep on schedule because our president, Jim McTighe, he wants to go home and see some Law and Order reruns this afternoon. So we got to keep it slow. So first of all, I want to welcome everybody. It's a privilege and an honor to be here today to celebrate the life and legacy of Joe Lapchick and 4 great college basketball coaches who are here with us this afternoon.
I want to thank Coach Gillen and Jimmy McTighe for giving me an opportunity to come up here and share a little bit of my experience and relationship with Coach Alfieri. Before I do that, I want to congratulate the recipients, the honorees this morning, Coach Larinaga, Coach Kruger, Fran Dunphy, and Diane Nolan when we met downstairs. I played for Coach at St. Anthony's High School on Smithtown, Long Island in the years 1970 to 1973. I was an all Long Island player. My team was the first of 4 Catholic League championships that Gus Alfieri coached. I then went on to Hofstra University, played in what was then the ECC, which was dominated by 3 of the Big 5, Temple, LaSalle. We've got a few Temple LaSalle people here today. St. Joe's and Lafayette.
My name is Jerry Houston. I'd first like to start off by congratulating the Lapchick Award winners who are being recognized today for their outstanding accomplishments. Coach would always tell us, carry yourself with pride and confidence and treat others with dignity and respect. He was always building character when he dealt with students, players, administration, anybody. That was just part of his nature, I believe. Thanks, Coach. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. I appreciate it.
But I want to thank all of you, all the great coaches who are being honored today, coaches who have been honored in the past. I've had the opportunity to get to know a number of you through Coach Dunphy. I've got to know Joe Mihalik, John, coach at Fran O'Hanlon, the coach at Fran O'Hanlon, who's at Lafayette, Coach John, who's at Manhattan College now, and a number of you, and a lot of the LaSalle staff. It's been a real pleasure. As I said, Fran and I have been friends for 67 years. We went to grade school, high school, and LaSalle together. And we have stayed friends ever since. So with that, let me congratulate the other coaches in the room for being so honored, and the coaches in the past who have been so honored. And with that, let me introduce you to my dearest friend, and an inspiration for me and my family, Coach Fran Dunphy.
There's so many things that, again, that I'm thankful for. I, again, appreciate Raymond's thoughts, and I want to be good here today. I want to tell you some things that I think are important for me in this peacefulness and the spirituality piece. Things just happen in life, and I can't explain them. Nobody should be this fortunate, but somehow I've been blessed, I've been lucky, and I will never forget how grateful I am for the opportunities I've been blessed with during the course of my career. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening to my stuff. And I'm anxious to hear what Diane and Jim and Lon will also have to say. We have a phenomenal profession. I'm not sure about where our game is today, to be quite frank. I'm not sure when we are going to center and things will calm down a little bit. We're in an interesting time. But again, very, very grateful for what this game has given to me. And nobody should be this fortunate. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I want to say a lot of people often come up and ask, well, what makes him different? Why is he successful? Why is, what makes him different from coaches and leaders? And I think The quickest answer is just his consistency. He's consistently nice, consistently caring, but most importantly, consistently genuine. I mean, he truly, truly feels that he wants every single person to succeed and have a great experience in doing so. Without a doubt, if there's any situation that ever arises where I have an opportunity or an option to be complimented for his accomplishments or how he is as a person, I would undoubtedly choose the latter. So, thanks, Dad. Congratulations. And I'm proud of you.
You guys being here and all that you do. I appreciate the opportunity today, but Kev actually graduated from Arizona State University in '06 and had a year of eligibility left, and was the first grad transfer to take advantage of that rule change back in 2006. And he came to Vegas when we were coaching there, and I was curious as to how he would do with being the coach's son in the locker room. And adequate, but love you very much. Thank you. I tell you, when we left the community, they missed her because of the volunteer stuff and the charity work. They missed her much more than they did me when we moved on. So, but again, it's just I appreciate the opportunity to be here to relive some of those childhood memories because they were very special. And again, to the Lapchick family, appreciate all that you do for others. Not many people have matched it, and appreciate that very much. And again, appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you very much.
There is no doubt in my mind that we've got a great one being awarded here this afternoon in Diane Nolan. And if it wasn't for Diane Nolan, I see Bernie McGlade, I see Kathy Rush, Vivian Stringer, Muffet McGraw. There is no way I'm getting up here having the success that I've had professionally and personally if it wasn't for this woman that gave me my opportunity. It's with great pleasure I introduce Diane Nolan.
You have to understand, like Trish said, like where you come from. And I was very, very lucky, blessed. My mother was a basketball coach. Now, think back. I mean, I played 6-on-6. So think about those days. And my mom was the coach. And when you see Bernadette and Agnes, my cousin Annie, Lisa Angelotti, they all played for my mom. And to be coached by your mom and to have your mom way back when to be your mentor, how blessed and lucky was I. My brother, Drew Nolan. I'm 14 years old and I'm at the Palestra. Every guy wanted to date me. I had tickets. Mel Greenberg is the manager of the Temple Owls. He asks me, can you keep stats? This is what we can share. And I'm so blessed that I was able to do that for so long. After Fairfield, I go to Yale and get introduced to the Ivy League. And what a special place. There's nothing like being at Yale and you're playing Harvard and they hold up these white boards and they write things about the coaches. Coach, you going to the disco after the game? And I'm like, what is that? Welcome to the Ivy League. To love the game is good. To play the game is greater. But to really love the game is the greatest of all. Thank you.
I've had the opportunity to get to know him over almost 30 years now, and it's been an incredible experience. He's a little different. You know, in the college athletics today, you may have coaches that cut corners or not necessarily do things the right way. Coach continues to believe in doing things the right way. He sticks to his core values and his belief systems, which makes him a little different in college basketball today. Now, I know nothing about the state of Ohio, nothing about the geographic footprint of Ohio. So I get to the Cleveland airport, he picks me up at the airport. As we're getting to the car, I'm thinking to myself, okay, we got about probably a 10-minute ride to the hotel, and then I'm gonna check in and get ready for my interview the next day. It's Friday night about 9:30. We get in the car, I'm like, Coach, how far is campus from here? He's like, 2.5 hours. I'm like, okay, all right, that's interesting. Well, we had no money in the budget at Bowling Green, so he had to fly me into Cleveland. So as we're driving into town and passing all the hotels, well, if you know Bowling Green, it was all motels. I'm asking him, hey, Coach, you know, where am I gonna stay at tonight to get ready for the interview? He's like, you're not staying in a hotel, you're staying at my house. So I took a mental note. It's a little bit different, right?
I want to thank everybody involved with the selection. I am so honored to be here today as a recipient of the Joe Lapchick Award. I want to recognize and congratulate Lon and Diane and Fran. I didn't know you were such a deep thinker. I failed the draft in 1971. I was happy as hell. I didn't think about anybody else. I ran out of the building jumping for joy. And at Christmas time, we were 7-0, and we went home for the holiday. When we came back on January the 1st, Mr. Curran called me into his office. And he called me Larry, short for Larry Nagel. He said, Larry, Brother Edmund, your coach, he quit the Marist order. I said, he did? Who's going to coach the team? I want you and Zeitler to coach the team. I said, you know, Mr. Curran, you know I'm 14 years old. The funny thing about New York is the passion for basketball. When I was growing up, New York City was the hotbed of the country. And it all started with the coaches, the passion they brought to the game. The guys like Joe Lapchick and Lou Conaseca and Jack Curran. And then I went on to Providence, and I played for Hall of Fame coaches. Joe Mulaney, Dave Gavin. But the one guy that's not yet in the Hall of Fame who should be is my high school coach, Jack Curran. And if any of you know anybody on that selection committee, push his name, because he was phenomenal. I've been at Miami now. This is the start of my 14th season. And everybody keeps asking me, when are you going to retire? And I said, well, Mr. Curran coached until he was 82 years old, and then he passed. I'm hoping to catch him. Thank you.
To the oceans wide with foam, God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you very much for coming. Hope to see you next year. All right? Yeah, be well. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Good afternoon and welcome to the New York Athletic Club for a special afternoon here with the awards. And now I'm not sure of which year. To be quite honest with you, Tim Capstraw is usually the MC. He had to get his knee replaced, so I got a phone call. And it kind of fits in with my athletic career. I'm coming off the bench again. So I'm very accustomed to this. It's an incredible place. I am a member here. For those of you in from out of town, enjoy it. It's a very, very special place. We have so many people to introduce through the course of the night, and if I miss anyone, I apologize in advance. Former members and honorees of the program, as well as so many people that have had great careers in coaching and administration and things of that nature.
And around the market's red lands, the bursting in air, gave proof through the night that a flag was still there.
There were so many roads to follow, and to get here was difficult. But after saying nothing, I really want to talk about a person who is obviously involved with this foundation, a gentleman that I played for, Joe Lapchick. He's really the honoree today.
The Joe Lapchick Leadership Award is an award we created as a foundation to say thank you. Say thank you to those who helped us establish the foundation, grow it,
Thank you for sitting down. Okay, I'll try. I'm trying. All right, we kindly take your seats, please. Thank you for sitting down. Thank you for sitting down. We still got time. We don't want to ruin the cocktail hour. The cocktail hour is the most important part. We don't want to ruin that. All right, cocktail hour is coming up soon. We don't want to break into the cocktail hour. Okay, before we have Richard Lapchick's coming up to speak in a minute. All right, before we do, I want to introduce a couple of people real quickly. All right, everybody take their seats, please. Everybody kindly take their seats. Drums up. Okay. Next person we'd like to introduce before we have Richard Lapchick come up. The gentleman is the coach of Manhattan College, head coach of Manhattan College, and he did an unbelievable job with the Jaspers. Last year they went to the postseason tournament. They had the most wins, 17 wins in 10 years at Manhattan College. Stand up, please. John Gallagher. Where's John? John Gallagher. Where's John? Where is he? There he is, right over there. He's a dress-up Irish. Irish guys should stand up. Some of the other guys, John Gallagher did a great job in Manhattan. Next person, real quick, we're going to introduce a guy who played at Fairfield University. He's a great player at Fairfield. He's in the Fairfield Hall of Fame, Brooklyn All-Timers Hall of Fame, and he's in the Hall of Fame in Olympia, Milano. Not a lot of Americans get into the Hall of Fame in Italy. but he's a great player, and he was a good friend of Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He went to Powell Memorial and brought Lou with him. It's the greatest gift Powell ever got, Lou Alcindor. All right, we can recognize my teammate at Fairfield's a great player. I sat on the bench. Art Kenny. Well, Art, stand up, please. He's Art over here on the left. Great player. And the most important part of the family is his wife, who is a wonderful person. She's a nurse, did an unbelievable job. She helps keep Artie in line, which is not easy. All right, Jeannie Kenny. Jeannie, please stand up. Jeannie over there. Nice looking lady with the blonde hair. Stand up, Jeannie. All right. Great American woman. Okay. You got a tremendous table. This gentleman is called the Dr. J of Europe. The Dr. J of Europe. Have you ever heard that before? Dr. J. He played for Real Madrid. He's a great player. He averaged a ton of points. Scored 65 points in the Spanish game. 65 points in the Spanish League game. Never been broken. Great player. His son's a great announcer. Walt Serbiak. Walt, stand up, please. There's Walt over there. Next person was First Team All City. First Team All City in New York City. He went to a school called St. Helena's, and then became Bishop Scanlon. The All City team. Quiet, please, just for a second. Quiet. Thank you. This gentleman was All City, New York City, 1965. How about this for the All City team? Lou Alcindor, Frank McLaughlin, one of our honorees. Right? The late, great Dean Meminger. And this gentleman here, he went to Harvard, did a great job there, played pro ball in Switzerland. All right? And the most important thing he did, he kept the school alive. This gentleman and a few other alums of St. Helena's, put money in, all right, and they kept the school alive. The other Christian brothers closed, Power closed, All Hallow closed, Bryce, all Catholic schools closed. He and a few other alums, all right, he's a Harvard grad, he's a Harvard Hall of Fame. Unbelievable job keeping Bishop Scanlon alive. A great job. All right, tremendous person. We say welcome to Chris Gallagher. Chris, stand up, please. Another gentleman is an All-American, great player, Hall of Fame at NYU. All right, when Art Kenny sometimes gets a little bit fired up, he calls this gentleman. This gentleman has great patience, helps keep Art in line. But a tremendous player, tremendous person, Jim Cigarelli. Jim. Okay. All right, now, we'd like to have now come up. We have two others, and we'll get our next gentleman. Next gentleman is a coach at Xavier High School here in Manhattan, 35 years. 35 years, a high school coach in Manhattan. Did a tremendous job. He's in the New York State Hall of Fame. The unbelievable job there. His name is Joe McGrain. Joe, stand up, please. There's Joe right there. Next gentleman, before we have Richard Lapchick come up, gentleman was a vice president of CBS Sports. Vice president of CBS Sports. He's a legend in the television industry, a great administrator. Lenny DeLuca. Where's Lenny? Lenny, stand up right there, Lenny. All right, he's a great American. He's a great American. Okay. All right, now we'll have come up Joe Lapchick's son. Richard Lapchick's going to come up and talk about his dad. Then we're going to have the other honorees right after that. All right, Richard Lapchick would kindly come up. Richard.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Pete, for emceeing the event. I've followed your career as both a coach and a TV analyst, and it's a real privilege to have you up here. On behalf of the Lapchick family, I just want to thank everybody involved in organizing this event this year and every year in the past, helping to keep the memory of my dad alive. It's amazing to me that 60 years after he coached his last game that we're still standing here talking about the most important man in my life. I want to congratulate all of the award winners. I must admit to my friends from St. John's and my loyalty to St. John's. that I have been a UConn women's basketball coach since the mid-1990s. And one of my favorite speeches was that Gino asked me to be the banquet speaker for when the first national championship team won. And I still have that signed ball at home. So, Gino, it's a pleasure that you're getting a Lapchick Award today. I traveled to Philadelphia for St. John's, St. Joe's games for a number of years with my dad. The trip home was very rarely celebratory, but I've got to know the incredible values of the university through my friend Don DeJulia, who was introduced before, the former athletic director there, and became a great friend of St. Joe's. While my dad might have not agreed with every call that was made against St. John's or the Knicks over the years, but he had a lot of respect for the profession. And we want to congratulate this year's award winner. I'm not sure where you're sitting, but your remarks were amazing and very appreciated. Then there's Frank McLaughlin. Yeah, then there's Frank McLaughlin. You got it right. We've been friends since we were 14 or 15 years old. We played basketball together. He was good, I wasn't. He ended up pursuing an amazing career that you already heard about. And I tried to support him in that way, and Frank has always tried to support me in the social justice work that I've been involved with, so we are especially thrilled that you are here receiving the Lapchick Award. I was asked before to share some thoughts about my dad's character. So a lot of you may not know this, but when my dad coached the Knicks, they went to the NBA Finals three straight times. That's only happened twice since that time with the Knicks. In 1951, 52, and 53, he was the first All-Star coach. He recorded 334 wins and 120 losses, one of the highest winning percentages in the history of the NBA. He had a winning percentage at St. John's that's the highest winning percentage of any coach in St. John's history, in spite of 4 Hall of Fame coaches having been at St. John's. When he played for the original Celtics, they were the dominant team of the 20s and 30s. And I'll talk more about them a little bit later, but that's his basketball background. I think what people wanted me to speak about today is his character. While he was in his first stint at St. John's, he was offered the coaching job at the New York Knicks as the Basketball Association of America was being formed. He really wanted the job, he loved the pro game, but he had promised his players at St. John's that he would stay there until they finished. So he turned down the job that year until everybody he had recruited to St. John's had graduated. My father didn't tell me this. Jack Kaiser, the former athletic director at St. John's, gave me a letter that a soldier who was in the European war, on an American air base in Europe, and at this particular time, the war was still going on. And this man wrote to Coach Carnesecca and told him about my dad's promise and what he did. That's one of the things about my dad is every story I'm about to share with you, he didn't tell me, other people told me. And in this case, that was true as well. Pete talked about Bob Cousy earlier. That is still one of the most amazing things that I can think of in a level of college sport, that a coach would be approached by the #1 player in the country to transfer there and say, no, stay where you are, you'll do well. Again, my dad didn't tell me that story. Bob Cousy told me that story, and he wrote about it later on, about how much it meant to him. The Knicks played in what was then Boston's home court in the early 1950s against the Celtics. The Celtics score a basket on a layup. The refs aren't in the angle where they could see it. A Knicks player knocked the ball out from under the rim, so the refs let the Knicks take the ball up court. It was obvious to all the fans, this is a Boston base. You can imagine how they're reacting. And my father calls a timeout, tells the referees that their basket was good. We lose by 1 point. The Celtics go on to the NBA playoffs. The Knicks lose by 1 game in those, or 1 game out at the end of the season, so they don't make the playoffs. At my father's wake, most of those Knicks players were there, and they said at that particular moment when my dad gave the Celtics the basket that they deserved, that they thought he was a lunatic. But with all the years that had passed, they realized that that was one of the greatest ethical lessons that they ever learned, that winning wasn't everything, that how you win has a great deal to do with it. While he was with the Knicks, he also, as some of you know, signed the first black player in the history of the NBA, Nat Sweetwater Clifton. And it was something that I'll always remember. I was a 5-year-old boy and looked outside my bedroom window in Yonkers, New York, where I was raised, and saw my father's image swinging from a tree with people under the tree picketing. And for several years after that, I'd pick up the extension phone in our house, my dad not knowing I was listening, and it was racial epithet after racial epithet being hurled at him. My father never told me about any of those things. I just heard them. I knew that something was terribly wrong. I didn't know what it was because I couldn't get my arms around why people were angry with this man who, for me, was my favorite person in the world. When my dad went back to St. John's in 1956, the athletic moderator came up to him and said, "Joe, I hesitate to tell you this. For those of you who don't know the history, my dad coached St. John's 36 to 45, the Knicks for the next 10, back to St. John's for another 10. He said our players weren't going to class and they were getting passed through the system. My father, who had an 8th grade education, was horrified that that could be taking place at his school, especially a Catholic school. So he and his then first-year assistant coach, he called over Louis and said, we've got to do something about this. And that night they made all the players gather in a classroom on campus and study whatever there was due. And that became what was, we believe, the first mandatory study hall in the history of college sport. And my dad had a lot to do with that. The final thing that I want to share with you is that of all the things that he was able to accomplish, both wins and losses, for me, the things that are most important are some of the stories. I could talk for much longer than this about all the stories that are out there about what my father did and what it meant to me that he never told me any of that. He was such a humble person that he taught me that humility is such a critical characteristic for all people. And I want to say that I want to again thank the committee for doing this every year. It means the world to our family. Some of you know that my sister Barbara, who is the only other surviving sibling, passed away this year, and she also used to come to this and loved the event. But I also want to close by saying, of all the great things my father is known for as a player and as a coach, he was an even better dad. Thank you very much.
The next honoree now, I coached against him. We came in second. It's not bad, but not in basketball. It was good. We played in the NIT. I was at Providence College. He was at St. Joe's. We played them, our court. We had a couple of guys that we knew from the neighborhood referee. We still couldn't win. Googie, Booby, and Batman, 3 referees in Providence, but we still couldn't win. Had a great team. He's a great coach. And to introduce him, his son is a new coach at VCU, did a tremendous job at Bryant in Rhode Island. And VCU is one of the premier programs in the country, unbelievable. Went to the NCAA tournament last year, with Ryan Odom. And next gentleman's taking over, is going to do a fabulous job. We can welcome Phil Martelli Jr. to talk about his dad.
First off, thank you to everybody that puts this luncheon together. What a tremendous show of, we always talk about the world is small, but the basketball world is super small, and incredible to see how all 4 honorees intertwine, and congrats to all 4 of you. I do have to admit something. I made a major mistake. I thought when my dad was getting the Joe Lapchick Character Award, I thought it was because of the character that he is. So I thought it was that all along. And then last night I was on the plane and I was like just kind of looking through and I was like, oh, this is about character. So I paused for a second. I said, well, why is he getting it? My mom has had to put up with all of us for 40 plus years. She should get a character award. So that's the real character. But regardless, I'll try to blend the two together here briefly. Any of you that have ever spent probably more than 30 seconds with my dad know he has stories for days. Story after story after story. They range from absurd to inspirational. And everywhere in between. And it always starts like Coach Duff, right? It always starts, hey, listen to this one, right? It's always, listen to this one. And it's some crazy story about somebody he met, or something that happened. And when you boil it down, after you're done laughing, scratching your head, going like, what is he talking about? You realize every one of those stories revolve around his love of people and ultimately his love of helping people. It is incredible to see what he has done throughout his lifetime. Forget the basketball. The basketball is meaningless. It's taking advantage of that platform and helping people. And even more than that, more than his stories, what always hits me hard is the stories from other people. Because I'll give you a glimpse into what my life has been like for many of these years. I get introduced to somebody, say, hi, I'm Phil Martelli. And immediately they look at you and go, you Phil's son? And it's followed by a smile, and it's followed by a story. A story how he helped them, how he touched their life. Something he did. Something as small as he called my brother when my brother was sick with cancer. He showed up at my daughter's school to speak at a second grade. It probably cost him more money in gas to go pick up some of these checks he's picked up for Coaches versus Cancer and make an appearance. I couldn't even name all the organizations he's touched and helped along the way, but that's what always has hit me, is when those people look at me and they say, you're Phil's son. And the pride that fills me, my brother Jimmy, who's here, is my associate head coach. He's with me today. But it's always that. It's always that. And I can't, regardless of my jokes at the beginning, I can't think of anybody, and all the honors he's gotten, I know this one means a lot because it's about character. So from those of us that call you Dad, that's me, my wife Megan, Jimmy, his wife Julie, my sister Elizabeth, her husband Pat, the 10 grandchildren that call him Tug, the unnamed grandfather, T-U-G, Tug. That is Philip, Stephen, Mara, Nathan, Brinley, Avery, Callan, Madeline, Nolan, Griffin, and Colin. Congratulations, my father, Phil Martelli.
Couple of housekeeping items. That applause from my wife was really appropriate because she's won 3 national championships when she was in college. You have honored many of her teammates. You honored her coach, Kathy Rush. She was at Immaculata. She didn't play much. She was the prettiest one on the team, so that was a hell of a recruiting job by me. And then trying to help Pete out here a little bit. Anybody that hasn't been introduced or been singled out, if you would just raise your hand. So, look, the rest of us need to acknowledge you. There's only about 6 of you left, right? You got them? And it's best to yell while people are talking, Pete, so that nobody hears who you're talking about. Philip talked about his sister, Elizabeth, who is probably the best coach in the family. She is in Bridgeport Elementary, 4th grade teacher, and they're all watching live stream. Instead of taking a spelling test like most of us took on Fridays, they're watching her father. So to Elizabeth and all of them at Bridgeport, we appreciate it. And then there are some tough things going on, and it makes you wonder. It really makes you wonder, is there a greater being? Are they paying attention? And this is my table, 14. This was Don DeJulia's number at St. Joseph's. This number is retired, not because of Don DeJulia. This number is retired because of Jameer Nelson. Had I not coached Jameer Nelson, I wouldn't be here. There's a greater power. That's why we got this table. So when you feel like you're going to give up, is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. He or she, whatever that greater power is watching, and they're paying attention. And they're going to deliver signs to us over and over and over. So G, Fran Dunphy, I want to make sure I get this right. Diane Nolan, Joe Mahalik, Speedy Morris, Muffet McGraw, Jay Wright, Herb McGee, Marianne Stanley, Teresa Grentz. I can't read my own writing here on that one. Debbie Ryan, Kathy Rush. Gee, we were the only ones left from Philadelphia that didn't get this. That's why we're being honored. We're the only ones left. It is true. At least for me, it's true. In the middle of the night, my eyes popped open, and I remembered this Lou Carnesecca story. And I don't think anybody in this room knows it. Don, I don't know if you know it. And my wife said she does not remember this. Somewhere before 2003, I don't know the exact year, I know where I was. I was in my driveway. I had just come home from recruiting. And I'm in the driveway, and the phone rang. And on the other end of the phone was Lou Carnesecca. And Lou Carnesecca said to me, Phil, I want you to come up to New York. We're looking for a coach, and I want you to coach St. John's. He said, it's an unbelievable job. Like, it's New York. It's Big East. We have great Catholic churches in New York. And I'm like, Louis, I'm really, really honored. But St. John's isn't in Philly. I'm not leaving Philly. He goes, so you feel about Philly the way I feel about New York? And I said, yes. And he hung up. Did you know it? Did you know it, Don? He called me to be the coach at St. John's, and I was like, it's not in Philly. How would you possibly, where would you go? Joe Festa called me about a year ago. Said, we're honoring Gene Steratore, and we're honoring Frank McLaughlin. We would like to honor you. I was like, wow, I'm just blown away. But there was a hesitation in his voice. And I was like, I wonder what the hesitation is. He goes, and is it true that you and Gino are really, really, really good friends? And I said, yeah, we've been friends for 50 years. He goes, would you mind asking him if he would accept the Lapchick Award? And I called him. I go, gee, look, I think there's a chance I could get the Lapchick Award if you will accept. Yes or no? But these connections, the way it kind of weaves together. Frank McLaughlin, they talk about you in New York and say how powerful you've been in New York and for all athletics. And the greatest tribute that I could pay to you is that you are to New York what Don DeJulia is to Philadelphia, because there is no finer man ever to grace athletics, higher education athletics than Don DeJulia. And for Frank to be mentioned in that word, and Gene, to be good at two things, to be at the best of the best at two things, and now add public speaking. Jesus. What do you do with your free time? And then we can't let this one go, because I'm making a statement right now, and I very rarely hold back. So we are in the presence of a real trailblazer here. Okay? Chris Daly will one day be inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame
because she's the greatest assistant coach in any sport ever. Chris will one day be in the Naismith Hall of Fame. And Chris, we don't even have to talk about like how at Kathy Rush's camp, you were on my team. So a lot of this path was laid out for you. The only thing that will hold back Naismith will be Connecticut fatigue, because he's going to have somebody in there for the next stretch of years, and then they're going to say, wait a second, what she's done is unprecedented. And then Gino. Okay, remove all doubt, the greatest women's basketball coach of all time, the greatest builder of an athletic program in NCAA history. And the beauty is this. Gee, if he and I got on that train and went back to Norristown and we went into an establishment tonight prior to the Phillies throwing the first pitch at 9:45 tonight, there would be two guys in there and they would look at him and say, Gino, man, do you remember that pickup game when you turned the ball over on game point? I still hold that against you. The other thing about Norristown, there are guys in Norristown who believe that they could have done exactly what Gino has done. They just chose to do something else. A ball and a dream. A ball and a dream. The Palestra. I played in the Palestra. But the ball and the dream went beyond that. We played for the city championship. I was at St. Joseph's Prep. We played Overbrook. We played at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. The game was being broadcast, delayed at 1 o'clock on the ABC affiliate. We lost. I went home. It was a beautiful day like today. I changed and I went to the court to play pickup. And 3 or 4 different people came up to me and said, Phil, what are you doing? I was just watching you on TV. I said, yeah, I know what happened in that game. But this ball and this dream are at this game now. This is what I want. I got to coach in the Palestra. I get to coach and see Don DeJulia threatened to be arrested by the fire marshal because he sold every ticket and every space in the building, so when you walked out on the floor and you looked around, there were no aisles. If anything had happened, no one could have gone out or in. It was that crowded. But to think that I had that opportunity in that building, and then even here at Madison Square Garden. I coached in the NIT finals here when the place was taken over by Philadelphia. I coached in the World University Games, Wally Zerbiak's breakout with USA Basketball. We won a gold medal in Madison Square Garden. Elton Brand was on that team. Wally was on that team. I got to coach in Madison Square Garden in front of 500 people on Thanksgiving night. I assume he's out of business now, but some what do they call it? Promoter had this great idea. St. Joe, Western Kentucky, 5 o'clock on Thanksgiving night. There were 500 people at the game. And I got to coach in Madison Square Garden on the return of the King. Pitino's first game in Madison Square Garden. I coached Michigan that night because Juwan Howard was out with a serious heart situation. So again, a ball and a dream. The Palestra, the Garden. A ball and a dream. And then I called the legendary Dick Weiss. I was a senior in college. I called the legendary Dick Weiss. And I said, Dick, I want to coach. I want to coach. How do you go about this? What do you do? He said, well, you need a mentor. You need a go-to person. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to Kathy Rush basketball camp run by Ed Rush, the NBA referee. Her husband, go up there. You're going to work all summer at their camp. You're going to make a lot of connections. And I got out of the car, and I had never been to basketball camp. And I walked in there, and I'm walking up the steps, and I looked to my left, and I said, that young lady is special. That was 50 years ago when I saw Judy for the first time. And this November, we will celebrate our 49th wedding anniversary. All those wins, all those losses, and always with a class and a dignity that surpasses anything that I deserve or I've been involved with. So love you and thank you. So this game, this ball, it has given me memories and it's given me relationships that will last a lifetime. No greater memory and no greater relationships than the ones that are in this room. Thank you for allowing me to add this to my memory bank. It will last forever. God bless.
Thank you, Phil. Great job. Last couple people we'd like to introduce before we bring up our next honoree. Phil wanted me to mention these guys because he owes them money. He owes them money, but if I enter a bit, then he doesn't have to pay. First gentleman is a guy I coached against many years ago in the CSSA in Brooklyn. Now, he's a great guy, but whatever it takes to win. Now, he introduced me to a person who's an ex-nun. She was a nun. And she came out of the nun, and he's sitting at this restaurant. We're having some Irish mouthwash, having a couple of drinks, and he introduced me to her. All right, after about 10 minutes, he's gone. I'm talking to him. What am I going to do? So we wound up taking her out a couple of times. We played this gentleman's team. 2 weeks later, I wasn't focused. I missed some practice. Late for practice. They beat us. So whatever it takes to win, he'll do that. But he's a winner. He coached in Queens, Monsignor McClancy High School. He did for a long time, over 20 years, and the court is named after him. The court is named after him. Like Carnesecca Arena, all right, George Bazzacco, I played for at Fairfield, Bazzacco Court, all right, it's named after this gentleman. He's on the injury reserve, but he came here because it means so much to him. He's a legend. He's a legend in New York City basketball. Don Kent. Don, raise your hand, please. A little banged up, so he can't jump up. Next gentleman is called Slice. I had a lot of friends in Brooklyn. They all had nicknames. Brooklyn people all have nicknames. Batman, Bullhead, Three-Fingered Willie. He had 5 fingers, but he used to steal with those 3 fingers. Slice, Dice, Ice, and Shorty. This gentleman's name is Slice. He's a lot younger than me, but a tremendous player at St. Francis College of Brooklyn. He's a big part of the the Tom Konchowski Foundation, who's a legend in Brooklyn and Queens. The gentleman, stand up, please. Barry Rawson. Barry, is he still here? Next gentleman is also a legend in the Notre Dame community. All right, he's one of the most ardent, passionate Notre Dame fans, alive, dead, or yet to be born. Alive, dead, or yet to be born. He was so passionate. He used to, before they had the cell phones and everything, he had 2 phones. He lives on the Upper East Side, tons of money. Went to Fordham Prep. I went to Brooklyn Prep. We couldn't get into Fordham Prep with a shotgun and freaking a hammer. But he went to Fordham Prep. He's a year older than Frank, and he has the phone. So he's too nervous to watch a Notre Dame football game because he used to get sick if they were losing. So he called on the phone, and the sports phone, he had to give the score, halftime, and damn, throws the phone down. Then third quarter, he goes into another room. Damn it. But he's a great Notre Dame fan. He was an attorney for George Steinbrenner. An attorney for George, imagine that, George Steinbrenner. George said, do this. I said, no, Eddie, I went to Fordham Prep. I can't do all that. Whatever. But he was a great attorney. Most important thing, he knows all the judges. I don't know how much he knows about the law, but he knows every judge in New York City. Really. They love him, but he's a very bright guy, a tremendous person. Ed Broderick. Ed, stand up. They're still here. Is Eddie still here? Sorry, I guess you like it. Oh, there he is. Yeah, stand up, Eddie. Why the Irish guys, they don't want to stand up? Stand up one more time, Eddie. Stand up. Right there, Eddie Broderick. All right. Man, I tell you what, need more lace curtain guys here. Next person I'd like to introduce is a close person of mine. He wrote a book called Static. He went to Virginia, University of Virginia. He was there. Once again, I couldn't get in there either, University of Virginia. He was in the honors program. Now he works in digital marketing. He just did a commercial for Chris Everett in the U.S. Open here in Queens. Did a bit about her with him and his partner, digital marketing company. He's my son, very proud of. A lot smarter than me. Brendan Gillen. Brendan, stand up. Luckily, he takes after my wife. So, all right, here we go. So, is Sammy here? Sammy Albano? I don't know if I can see. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you see it too. Another gentleman here is a sports journalist. Sports journalist, he did work for the World Series, right, for the Final Four. He covered pro sports in New York City, covered St. John's. He loves St. John's. Forget about it. Passionate St. John's fan, but a tremendous guy. He's also banged up on injury reserve, but he wanted to come here. Very well respected sports journalist for editing and marketing, for TV, producing. All right, Sam Albano. Stand up, Sam. Sammy. All right, he's on injury reserve. Okay. All right. Next person we introduce now is going to introduce our last honoree. Thank you for your patience. I get paid by the word, so the more I talk, I get a few. I get 2 cents for every word. So, next person we talked about before. She's in the Women's Hall of Fame, the inaugural Assistant College Coaches Hall of Fame. She's in that. Unbelievable job wherever she's been. As we mentioned before, 12 national titles at UConn. Forget about it. Chris Daly, come on up. Chris.
Hello. Ooh. Guess I just did that. It's a pleasure for me to be here to, okay, you want to fix this?
I'm not too
How come when Phil was up here, he talked forever and it didn't do that? I'm just trying to say hello and get an introduction.
Stay away from it a little bit,
okay.
maybe.
I'm happy to be here and help recognize the honorees, Frank and Jean. I enjoyed learning more about you and your stories. And Phil, I need to make a correction. I was not on your team. I was the one that you had doing wall sits for talking too loud in my room. You were the one that I thought, who is this mean, bald guy that's bossing people around? And you can imagine my surprise when the rumor was going around camp saying that you were dating the prettiest, nicest counselor there. I was shocked. Fast forward, I end up starting to work with Gino, and unbeknownst to me, he's friends with the mean guy from Kathy Rush. And I end up at one point in Avalon babysitting Gino's 2 kids, the 2 Martellis and 2 kids of Jim Foster, and I survived that and went on to survive working with Gino for 40 years. It's been, I've been to a lot of banquets and celebrations and having the opportunity to honor Gino, and it's been obviously a pleasure. This one is especially nice because I actually got this award before him. And Phil, you'll be happy to know we have worked really hard on his character since that day on to give you a chance to get in here. And the worst part about doing this introduction stuff is that he always follows me, and so I never get the last word. So I'm going to say what I can say, and then you'll have to listen to what he has to say. But, you know, what can I say? To introduce someone to so many people in the world of basketball, with everything that he's done, he really needs no introduction. You know, he's the winningest coach in college basketball, the 12 national championships, all of that. Just a Hall of Fame career. But I think what this award is about is all the things that he is when he's not on the court. And that is the kind of person that he is, his generosity. He has raised thousands and thousands of dollars for the Connecticut Children's Hospital and does it every year without, fanfare, raises a lot of money. He's the first person in the world of women's basketball when they need something. Starting the Pat Summitt Foundation, he's the first one to be willing to donate. Kay Yao, any organization within women's basketball, he is the first one that's there to lend support. So that goes unnoticed. He's also very giving of his time. I think with young coaches, whether they're basketball coaches or within our department, he spends a lot of time with those coaches. And it gets to the point where they think he's really great, and it kind of, after a while I get tired of hearing it, but it's okay. Then they invite him to speak to their team. And it's usually like field hockey, it was they were undefeated, going to the national championship. I think baseball was going to the Big East, ice hockey. He's talked at swimming, and after every one they lose. I have suggested to the coaches to stop asking him because it is not a good his track record on everything else up here. His track record talking to teams and then them going on to do great things doesn't work. But, it's an honor. It's been an honor, a pleasure for me to work with him. He, like Phil, it sounded like you were describing Gino when you talked about stories. And I've been with him now 40 years, and I have heard all of them over and over and over again. Even ones I was there, I'm hearing over and over and over again. But he never isn't there for his friends. I think what Phil mentioned, his same friends from Norristown come to games, and that's what separates him. I think the kind of person that he is, he's just always there, and he'll always be there for you. And I'm just proud to be able to call him my friend, and I'd like to introduce Gino Auriemma.
Hi, Chris. Thanks. I appreciate it. You guys done over there? All right, good.
Just see if you pay attention.
All right. Chris, we raised millions of dollars for Connecticut Children's. But somebody that still has their first Holy Communion money, thousands to you is a lot of money. Couple things. One, introductions are not supposed to be longer than the actual speeches. So we are running out of time, so we'll try to make this as brief as we can. I'm 71 years old. I've had a great life, and I'm gonna tell you about it right now. Isn't that like the worst thing that a speaker can say? We were at a dinner, I was talking to Chris about it. We were at a dinner one night, and there were 12 speakers. And number 12 is an 81-year-old guy. And he talks for like 10 minutes. And we think he's finished. And at the 10-minute mark, he goes, and I've had a long and fruitful life. And I'm gonna tell you about it. And everybody's head just hit the table right there. So I'm not gonna tell you about my whole life, but I am gonna. Where's Frank? Frank's still here? There he is.
It's cutting into my nap time.
I know. I don't think anybody's acknowledged the role that you had helping Naismith invent the game. I mean, you were around then, right? That's gone completely. Pete, with all the things you announced, you didn't announce that part? Jesus. And truly one of the legends in the game. Goes without saying, that name, right? When you say that name, McLaughlin, everybody knows exactly who you're talking about and what you're talking about. So it's an honor to be here with you. Gene, you look a little bit like my brother. Phil, you look like a little bit like my brother? Not as tall, but you're a little bit like my brother. And I'm glad you wore your spikes, just in case, you get an assignment. You see him out here, he's got his spikes on. If I closed my eyes, listen to you speak, I would think, that guy's not Italian, he's way too well-spoken. And yeah, being Italian and people saying that you're the best at what you do, I gotta tell you, that's your mom, like my mom, and any other person's mom in here. I think they're proud when they see what their sons, they're proud. They're happy for their daughters. Moms are happy for their daughters, but they're really proud of their sons. Right? Because they know down the road, their sons are going to take care of them. So I think we make people proud of us. And I think you've made a whole generation of people proud of you. And it's, like Phil said, it's very difficult to be the best at what you do with two things, And I appreciate when greatness is in front of me. Congratulations. I got to officiate a intramural game one time, and one of the guys that was playing was a high school teammate of mine, and we were in college, and it was intramurals, and he's about 6'5", built like a linebacker, and so I'm going to show this guy who's boss, right? And I called a technical on him in an intramural game, and I thought, yeah, take that, you big, and he came over and beat the shit out of me. So my officiating career lasted exactly one game. And Phil, everybody knows about Phil's stories. He has more stories than Dr. Seuss, right? So he's, and Phil Jr. was right. He's got a story for everything, and every story has a meaning to it. But the world is a small world, right? The basketball world is even smaller. So sitting here, we got Don DeJulia, who was the AD at St. Joe's, and Jim Foster was the head coach at Bishop McDevitt High School. Then he went on to St. Joe's, then he went on to Vanderbilt, then Ohio State, then UT Chattanooga, and now he's retired. But when he was coaching high school, he said to me one day, he said, you want to help me coach basketball? I said, what basketball? And he said, I just got hired to coach this girls' high school basketball team. I said, who the hell would want to coach girls? This was 1975, 6, around there, right? No, maybe even before that. Like I was still in school, so yeah, it was before that. And he said, no, come help me at practice. So I went to practice, and eventually, after like the 5th time, I went to practice, and I said, let's see, I'm 21, 22, and they're 15, 16, 17. And I said something, and they all looked at me like big eyes, like, ooh. And I said something else, and they're like, ah. And then after the 3rd or 4th thing I said, and they're like nodding their head. And I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. I got like, all these kids think like I'm smart. So I went back again, and then next thing you know, I get a phone call, and Jim goes, hey, I just got the head coaching job at St. Joe's. And I said, how? Like, how could a guy like you get a college job? But he did. Don DeJulia knew what he was doing, and he hired Jim. And I went with him, and I got a raise to $1,000 a year. Well, it's a Jesuit school. If the Jesuits know one thing, they know how to keep the money that they make, right? They're not sharing it with anybody. And so that's a small world. So now I'm helping at Kathy Rush basketball camp, and Phil's running the camp. And Phil sees me, and he goes, what are you doing coaching women's basketball? I said, I don't know, this is what I'm doing. And He said, come coach with me. So I went with him to go coach. And then Debbie Ryan, who's in this book, she got the award, hires me at the University of Virginia, and that was my first head coaching job. I mean, that was my first like big college job. I was at UVA, and I spent 4 years there. And when they hired Pete, I said to anybody that would listen, this is not going to end well. I said, that guy's one of the best coaches in America. He's one of the best coaches I've ever seen. I mean, this guy, but you put a guy that talks like that down in Charlottesville, Virginia, that ain't gonna work. And the things that come out of his mouth, forget the way he says it, the stuff that comes out of his mouth, I said, this is not gonna end well. And it was their loss, I have to say. So, then I got a chance to get the Connecticut job, and I went up there, and during the interview, they said, well, if we hired you, who would you? I know, I'll be finished in a second. I get it. So they said, who would you hire? Who would your staff be? I said, well, I would hire Chris Daly. Now, the person that was interviewing me had been the head coach at Penn State. So she knew of Chris from her time in Rutgers. And she looked at me and she goes, she would leave Rutgers to come coach here at Connecticut? Like, nobody goes to Connecticut. Even the kids that were going to school there didn't want to go there. The only reason they went to Connecticut back in those days is that they couldn't get in anywhere else, or they couldn't afford to get in go anywhere else. So she was all excited because I was going to hire Chris Daly if I got the job. So I get the job, and I call Chris, and I go, hey, I got the job at the University of Connecticut. She goes, no kidding, congratulations. I said, yeah, I told him you were going to be my assistant. She said, you're out of your mind. I'm not coming up there. I said, come on up. She came up, looked around. She says, I don't like it here, and I'm not coming. I said, come on, come here. And for less money, and no car, and a lousy place to live. But she took the job, and the rest is history, because if she hadn't taken the job, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't have had any of the success that I've had, and Connecticut basketball would not be Connecticut basketball without her. So, yeah, I don't want to cut into the cocktail hour, but we set the record this year for most wins ever in college basketball, men, women, anybody. So we had this big ceremony, they gave out t-shirts, and there's this picture on the t-shirt of me and Chris. So I'm thinking to myself, when Coach K broke the record for men, did anybody put his assistant's picture on the t-shirt? Coach K, if you know, he would have 2 pictures of himself. He's not going to put his assistants on there. So everywhere I go, hey, that's the record. Oh, yeah, it's a cool t-shirt. And I always wear it underneath the sport coat, so I move the sport coat over like this so nobody can see your picture on it. It's unbelievable. I got to share, don't even get me started. You know what they say? Behind every great man is a great woman. Yeah, ready to take all the credit. Yeah. So, thank you to the Lapchick family, especially. This is not this is not a basketball award. It's not an officiating award. It's not an athletic director award. It's not an award for you as a player. It's something about who you are and what you stand for and the things that matter. And the things that matter the most are, someone said, it's how you make people feel. And I do think that there's a lot of great Italian coaches. 2 Martellis in here. And all those Irish guys you introduced, and none of them would stand up? Every Italian guy you introduced, they jumped up. Introduce more Italians next time. There's an awful lot of Italian coaches, right? You can go down the list, right? Lombardi, starting with Lombardi, Tony La Russa, Jim Valvano, Rolly Massimino, Louis Carnesecca. You know, you can go down in every sport. Tom Izzo, I mean, I can't name them all. And I think it has to do with the way we were raised. You know, everybody talks about this idea that in Italian families, dads rule the roost. You know, like you watch on TV, you know, they think every dad is like Tony Soprano or something like that. You know? And Frank, you'd be the first, you know, your dad was obviously a great player. And in Italian households, dads don't get up in the morning unless their wife says it's okay to get up today. And they don't come home from work unless their wife says it's okay to come home. So everything in that house is run by our moms. And our moms, empathy was the word that was used. Our moms teach us how to treat other people. Our moms teach us how to be kind, how to understand what people are trying to say. You know, they say that teaching involves two things. One, being able to explain something to kids that have a hard time understanding, and being able to understand kids who have a hard time explaining. See, to me, that's what teaching is. But you need to have a certain love for the person that you're dealing with in order to do that. And that's what our moms teach us. And that's what my mom taught me. She couldn't read, couldn't write. When she passed away, 92, never had a checkbook, never had a credit card, never learned to drive, but learned and taught all the things that are important in life. How to treat people, how to be kind, how to put yourself in other people's shoes. And I think that is the essence of what we do for a living. We make people feel good every day. We help them be better every day. We look into their soul and we say, what does this kid need from me? And how do I help them get it and get to where they want to go? And then when we're finished and we get a thank you note or a text anymore or anything saying, Coach, I wouldn't be where I am today without you. Forget the wins and losses. And one of my first players my year, Audrey Epstein at the time, Polinsky now, first team, 1985. Okay, that's 40 years ago. And those kids are still part of my program, they're part of my life, and I think I'm part of theirs. And they can't remember what their record was. They can't remember how many points they scored in each game. They can't remember any of that. But they do remember the impact that they had on each other, the impact they had on me, and the impact that I had on them. And I don't have to hear it every day, I just know it. I know the impact they had on me, I know the impact I had on them. And that, I think, is worth more than wins, more than money, more than accolades. It's priceless. And so this reward doesn't reward us, the four of us, for our wins, for our trophies, for our successes, for any of those things. It rewards us for the impact that we've had in young people's lives and how we've made them better. And I want to thank my mom as much as anybody for helping me be that kind of person. And thank you all for recognizing that in the four of us and honoring us in the way that you have. So thank you for having me. Congratulations to all of you. And I wish you all the best of luck.
Congratulations, great job.
Thank you.
What's next? If you can just stay here, we're going to sing God Bless America. Adam Unger's going to come on up, all right, and then we'll have a cocktail party. So Adam would come on up, please. Here's Adam. I was going to sing it, but I'm tone deaf. Here's Adam. We'll sing God Bless America. Please stand, please, if you would, and then we'll have the cocktail hour. Thank you, Adam.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Great job. And I want to thank Jim McTie, who put this on together. Jim, where's Jim? He's right. Jim, raise your hand. Jim put this together, right here. Jim, raise your hand. Jim McKay, he put it on together. Thank you.